One cruel moment changed everything. A black gay kid, standing alone in the school hallway, while white students pointed and laughed, until his drag queen mother turned the tables in the most explosive way possible. This is the story of bullies who never saw revenge coming. From which country are you enjoying this story? Make sure to tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this.
Most high school fights start with a shove, a slur, or a stolen boyfriend. But mine started with a sequin. I knew the moment I walked into Ridgeview High that morning that my shirt would cause a reaction. It wasn't just any shirt, it was one I'd spent all weekend bedazzling, carefully gluing each sequin into place to spell out drag queen appreciation in bold, shimmering letters. The sleeves were cut off, the neckline scooped just low enough to be daring but not enough to get dress-coded. It was a masterpiece. And I knew exactly who would hate it the most. Table 7. That's what everyone called it. Not because it was the 7th table in the cafeteria, but because it was where Emily, Chloe, and their squad of pastel-wearing, iced coffee-sipping clones held court every morning. They weren't just popular. They were untouchable. Teachers liked them, guys wanted them, and the rest of us? We just tried not to get noticed. I should have known better than to walk past them. "Nice shirt," Emily said, her voice dripping with the kind of fake sweetness that made my teeth ache. "Did you raid your grandma's craft drawer?" I kept walking. Not because I was scared, but because I'd learned the hard way that engaging never ended well. Chloe, never one to be left out, leaned forward. "Oh my God, is that glitter? Do you bathe in it?" A few of their friends giggled. I stopped, took a breath, turned around. "No," I said, smiling just enough to let them know I wasn't rattled. "I save that for special occasions. Like when I need to blind people with my brilliance." Emily's smirk faltered for half a second before she recovered. "Cute. Real cute. But seriously, why do you have to shove it in everyone's face?" I blinked. "Shove what?" "My existence." "You know what I mean," she said, waving a hand like she was swatting away a fly. "The whole thing. No one cares if you're gay, but you don't have to be extra about it." I adjusted my bag on my shoulder, tilting my head. "Honey, extra is my middle name. Right after fabulous, and before deal with it." That's when the Diet Coke hit my chest. It was so cold it stole my breath for a second. The liquid splashed across my shirt, the carbonation fizzing against the sequins, the ice cubes bouncing off me and clattering to the floor. The cafeteria went quiet. Chloe was still holding the cup, her eyes wide like even she hadn't expected that. I looked down at my ruined shirt. The sequins were peeling off, the colors bleeding together. My hands shook, but not from the cold. Emily crossed her arms. Oops. I could have cried. I could have screamed. I could have thrown my own drink back at her. Instead, I wiped the soda off my face and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "If you wanted me wet, all you had to do was ask." The cafeteria erupted. Some people gasped. Some laughed. A few even clapped. Emily's face turned red. "You're disgusting." I walked away before she could say anything else. The principal's office smelled like old coffee and disappointment. Principal Higgins sighed like I was the one wasting his time. "Jaden, they claim you provoked them." I stared at him. "Ah yes, my provocative existence. A classic crime." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "They'll get detention." Like that fixed anything. My house smelled like hairspray and ambition. My mom, Regina LaRue, drag queen extraordinaire, was mid-contour when I walked in. One look at my stained shirt and she froze. "Oh hell no." I dropped my bag on the floor. "They won, Mom. They always win." She spun her chair toward me, false lashes sharp as knives. "Baby, the only way they win is if you let them think they broke you." I slumped onto the edge of her vanity. "Then what do I do?" Her grin was dangerous. "We throw a better party." The next morning, Ridgeview High got an announcement over the loudspeaker. "Attention students! This year's prom will be hosted by none other than Regina LaRue." Emily's jaw dropped. Chloe's foundation cracked. And me. I finally smiled. The morning after the announcement, Ridgeview High buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. I walked through those front doors with my head higher than usual, my ruined drag shirt replaced with a simple black tee that read in small white letters, "Just wait." Emily intercepted me at my locker. Her usual pastel sweater was replaced with something darker, like she tried to match my energy and failed spectacularly. "You think this is funny?" she hissed, her manicured nails digging into her Starbucks cup. I spun my combination lock slowly. "I think it's hilarious actually. But wait till you see the decorations. Mom's thinking giant disco balls with your face on them." Chloe materialized beside her, phone in hand. "You can't just have your, whatever she is, take over our prom." I slammed my locker shut. First, she's my mother. Second, it's not your prom. It's everyone's. And third, I leaned in close enough to smell her vanilla perfume. "You're gonna love what she's got planned." The warning bell rang. As I walked away, I heard Emily mutter, "We'll see about that." Lunch found me at my usual table, the one near the trash cans that no one wanted. Marcus, the only sophomore who talked to me, slid into the seat across. "So," he said through a mouthful of tater tots, "your mom's really doing prom?" I nodded. Principal Higgins called her last night. Apparently, the original planner backed out last minute. Funny how that happened. Marcus's eyes widened. "No way. Your mom scared her off." I smirked. "Let's just say Regina LaRue has connections. The woman who was supposed to DJ? Turns out she's a regular at Mom's drag brunches." The cafeteria doors burst open. Emily stormed in, Principal Higgins trailing behind her like an exasperated shadow. She pointed at me dramatically. He's behind this. His drag queen mother can't just take over school events." Higgins sighed. "Miss Carter, unless you have proof of wrongdoing dash. It's wrong because it's weird." Emily shrieked. A few freshmen at the next table snickered. I stood slowly, all eyes on me. Weird like throwing drinks at people? Or weird like harassing someone for what they wear? The room went quiet. Higgins cleared his throat. "The school board has approved Ms. LaRue as prom coordinator." End of discussion. As Emily fumed, I caught Chloe staring at me with something new in her eyes. Not hatred. Not amusement. Fear. Mom's workshop looked like a craft store exploded. Sequins covered every surface, feathers floated in the air, and half-constructed prom decorations littered our dining table. "They're already panicking," I said, stepping over a pile of rhinestones. Mom didn't look up from her sewing machine. "Good. Panic people make mistakes." The machine whirred as she stitched what looked like a banner. "Now tell me everything about these girls. Their likes, their fears, their deepest insecurities." I blinked. "You're terrifying." She finally looked up, grinning. "I know." As I described Emily's obsession with popularity and Chloe's desperate need to fit in, Mom's eyes gleamed with the strategic brilliance of a general planning battle. "Perfect," she murmured. "Now help me glue these feathers to this boa. We've got a prom to revolutionize." The next morning, flyers appeared all over school. Ridgeview Prom, a night of realness, featuring drag queen makeup tutorials, voguing lessons, lip sync for your life competition, and special guest judges. Emily tore one off the bulletin board during passing period. "This is disgusting." I leaned against the lockers. "Actually, it's fabulous. But I can see how you'd get them confused." She got in my face, her breath smelling of mint gum and rage. "You won't get away with this." I smiled sweetly. "Watch me." As she stormed off, I noticed Chloe lingering by the water fountain, staring at the flyer with something almost like interest. Interesting. The feathers were becoming a problem. I found them everywhere, in my backpack, stuck to my socks, even floating in my cereal bowl. Mom had gone full creative demon since getting the prom gig, and our house now resembled the backstage of a Vegas revue. I spat out a stray feather during breakfast. Do we really need this many plumage-based decorations? Mom adjusted her silk robe, not looking up from her sketchbook. "Baby, when have I ever done anything halfway? Now eat your toast. We've got a meeting with the decor committee." That was new. Since when did prom have committees? School felt different that week. Not better exactly, but charged. Like the air before a thunderstorm. People I'd never spoken to kept stopping me in the halls. "Your mom's really doing the makeup tutorials?" asked Jessica Lou, who usually pretended I didn't exist. I nodded. Yep, she's bringing her whole kit. The good stuff they use on RuPaul. Jessica's eyes widened. No way. Like actual stage makeup. Way. I hesitated. You should come. She bit her lip, glancing at table 7. Maybe. Chloe started appearing in places she shouldn't be. Like outside the drama room when I was helping Mr. Keene with props. Or suddenly needing something from her locker whenever I passed by. The third time it happened, I snapped. Either say whatever's stuck in your throat or stop lurking. It's creepy. She flinched, then surprised me by blurting, "How do you do it?" Do what? Just not care what people think. Her fingers twisted around the straps of her backpack. About how you dress. Or the makeup. Or being gay. I raised an eyebrow. Wow, say it louder. I don't think the football team heard you. Chloe's cheeks flushed. That's not what I... Here's the thing, I said, stepping closer. I do care. I just care more about being me than being their version of acceptable. Something flickered in her eyes. Something dangerous. Oh. Then Emily's voice cut through the hallway. Chloe, we're late. The spell broke. Chloe scurried away like a startled rabbit. Mom's prom planning sessions became legendary. Every afternoon, our living room filled with unlikely allies. Marcus, taking furious notes on how to apply contour. It's like tactical shading for your face. Jessica and 2 other theater kids brainstorming lighting designs. Even Quiet Omar from the AV Club, who turned out to have encyclopedic knowledge of disco-era sound systems. You're creating monsters, I whispered as Mom taught Marcus how to properly snap a fan open. She winked. I'm creating allies. There's a difference. The backlash hit on Thursday. I walked into school to find half our prom flyers defaced. Someone had scribbled, "Freak Show," across Mom's photo in thick black marker. Marcus appeared at my shoulder, uncharacteristically grim. Emily's crew was here early. I stared at the vandalism, my throat tight. Then I noticed something else. Fresh flyers taped over some of the damaged ones. Neatly printed, with a new edition at the bottom. Sponsored by the Ridgeview LGBTQ+ Alliance. Yes, we exist now. I turned to Marcus. He shrugged. What? You thought you were the only one who wanted change. That afternoon, Chloe found me alone in the art room. I didn't know they were going to do that, she said quietly. I kept sketching my design for the prom throne Mom insisted we needed. But you didn't stop them. Silence. Then a small, torn piece of paper slid across the table. A phone number. Emily's planning something. For prom night. Chloe wouldn't meet my eyes. Just be careful. She left before I could respond. The paper burned in my hand. Mom took the news surprisingly well. Oh honey, of course they are. She sipped her martini, perfectly calm. But here's what they don't know. She pulled out her iPad, revealing blueprints. Not for decorations. For the entire venue's electrical system. When they try to pull their little stunt, she purred, tracing a circuit diagram, every light in that room will cut out. And when they come back on, her smile turned feral. Let's just say Ridgeview's never seen spotlights like these. I stared at her in awe. Remind me never to get on your bad side. She kissed my forehead. Too late for them, baby. The text came at 2:37 a.m. Unknown number, but I knew. Asterisk, they're going to cut the music during your mom's performance. Fire alarm pull station by the bathrooms. Don't tell anyone I told you. Asterisk. I stared at my phone screen until it burned into my vision. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then finally one last message. Asterisk, I'm sorry. Asterisk. Mom found me still awake at dawn, dissecting school blueprints with the intensity of a general planning D-Day. Someone's nervous, she sing-songed. setting down a coffee that smelled suspiciously like it had Bailey's in it. I showed her the texts. Her eyebrow arched. Well, the mouse grows a conscience. We have to tell Principal Higgins. And ruin all the fun? She'd scared. Baby, this is better than anything I could have planned. They want to play dirty. She tapped the fire alarm diagram. Let's give them a show they can't sabotage. Chloe looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles lurked under her carefully concealed foundation, and her usual crisp ponytail sagged. When our eyes met in physics, she flinched like I'd struck her. Emily noticed. What's your problem lately? She snapped as Chloe jumped at a dropped textbook. Nothing. Just tired. Emily's eyes narrowed. She looked at me, then back at Chloe. Something ugly passed between them. The LGBTQ+ alliance, really just me, Marcus, and 3 drama kids who like saying, "Yas Queen," met in the abandoned home EC room. Marcus waved a USB drive like a sword. Got it. The complete prom playlist and lighting controls. IT guy left his computer unlocked. Jessica frowned. But if they cut power? I pulled out 4 bulky battery packs. Mom's friends at the nightclub hooked us up. These babies run sound systems for hours. Omar whistled. That's some Mission Impossible shit. I grinned. Wait till you see the smoke machines. Chloe cornered me after school by the dumpsters where no one went. Up close, she smelled like stale perfume and stress sweat. You didn't tell anyone, she whispered. Not a question. I leaned against the brick wall. Why warn me? Her hands trembled. That shirt you wore. The drag one. My cousin has one like it. The pieces clicked. He sends me videos sometimes. Of the performances. A shaky breath. They're beautiful. The back door slammed. We jumped apart as Emily appeared, eyes darting between us. There you are. We're leaving. Chloe's mask slid back on so fast it hurt to watch. Prom night dawned humid and tense. Mom transformed our living room into a backstage war room. Marcus, you're on light cues. Omar, sound checks every 30 minutes. Jaden, she framed my face with bejeweled hands. Tonight, we change everything. I should have been nervous. But as I zipped up my custom blazer, black velvet with subtle rainbow piping, all I felt was calm. The texts came again as we loaded the car. Asterisk, they know. Be careful. Asterisk, then. Asterisk, I'm sorry. For everything. Asterisk. Mom saw my expression. Regret makes people brave, baby. Let's see how brave she really is. The gymnasium was unrecognizable. Mom had turned the sad basketball court into a glittering palace. Mirrored disco balls, a runway-style stage, even a neon "YAS Queen" sign salvaged from some gay bar's renovation. Emily's crew arrived in matching pink dresses, their shock poorly concealed. Chloe trailed behind them, her silver dress swallowing her like tin foil. Principal Higgins adjusted his ill-fitting tux. Ms. LaRue, this is certainly unique. Mom adjusted his bow tie. Stick around, sugar. The night's just starting. The first notes of "Call Me Mother" began to play. The bass thumped through the gymnasium floor, rattling the bleachers and shaking loose a few stray balloons from the ceiling. The lights dimmed, leaving only the neon glow of the YAS Queen sign casting long shadows across the crowd. Mom had taken the stage, not as Jaden's mother, not as Mrs. Carter, but as Regina LaRue, in full drag glory. A towering silver wig, a sequin gown that could blind someone if the light hit it right, and heels so high they might as well have been stilts. The crowd was split, half of them staring in awe, the other half whispering behind their hands. Emily stood near the punch table, arms crossed, her pink dress suddenly looking cheap under the neon lights. Chloe lingered beside her, but her eyes were locked on the stage. Then the music swelled, and Mom lifted the mic. Welcome to prom, you beautiful heathens. The theater kids erupted in cheers. Marcus hooped so loud it echoed. Even a few of the jocks clapped, though they tried to play it off like they weren't impressed. Mom smirked, letting the moment simmer before continuing. Now, I know some of you were expecting whatever sad, basic party you usually get. But tonight, she snapped her fingers, and the spotlight hit her like a lightning strike. Tonight, we elevate. #### the setup. Emily's plan was supposed to be simple. 1. Cut the music during Regina's performance. 2. Pull the fire alarm to cause chaos. 3. Humiliate Jaden in front of the whole school. But here's the thing about plans. They rely on everything going exactly as expected. And nothing about tonight was going as expected. #### the first sabotage attempt. 5 minutes into Mom's opening number, *supermodel* by RuPaul, obviously, Emily nudged one of her lackeys toward the fire alarm. I saw it happen in slow motion. The girl, Megan, I think, slipped away from the crowd, heading for the hallway where the alarm was. But what she didn't know, Omar was waiting. As soon as her fingers brushed the alarm, the lights didn't just cut out, they flashed, strobing like a nightclub warning. The music didn't stop, it changed, switching to Disturbia by Rihanna as the spotlight swung onto Megan, frozen with her hands still outstretched. The crowd gasped. Mom didn't miss a beat. "Oh, sweetie," she purred into the mic, "if you wanted attention, you could have just asked." Megan turned beet red and bolted back to Emily's side. ### Chloe's breaking point. Chloe had been quiet all night, nursing a cup of punch like it was the only thing keeping her upright. But when Emily leaned in and hissed something in her ear, something in her face shifted. I saw it. The moment she realized she was tired. Tired of the whispers. Tired of the rules. Tired of pretending she didn't watch drag performances on her phone when no one was looking. And then, she walked away. Not toward the exit. Not toward the bathroom. Toward the stage. #### the lip sync challenge. Mom had set up a lip sync for your life corner. A joke, mostly, but also a test. Who would dare? Chloe did. She stepped onto the small platform, her silver dress shimmering under the lights, and when the opening notes of Born This Way started playing, the entire room held its breath. Emily's face twisted in fury. What the hell is she doing? But Chloe wasn't looking at her. She was looking at me. And then, she performed. Not perfectly. Not like someone who'd done it before. But with heart. With relief. The crowd went wild. #### Emily's meltdown. Emily didn't like losing control. She especially didn't like losing it publicly. So when she stormed toward the stage, I knew what was coming. "You're ruining everything," she screamed at Chloe. The music cut. The room went silent. Chloe, still breathless from performing, just looked at her. "No," she said quietly. "You did that yourself." And then, Emily lunged. #### the fight, or lack thereof. She didn't get far. Because Mom moved, faster than anyone in 6-inch heels should be able to, and caught Emily's wrist mid-swing. "Aha, princess," she said, voice low but carrying. "We don't do that here." Emily yanked her arm back, but Mom didn't let go. The room was dead silent. Then, security. Principal Higgins finally snapped out of his shock. Rushing forward, Emily was escorted out, still screaming about how this wasn't over. But for the first time all year, it felt over. Chloe didn't go back to table 7 after that. She sat with me and Marcus for the rest of the night, her hands shaking but her chin high. Mom finished her set like nothing had happened, and by the time We Are Family played for the final dance, even the teachers were on the floor. As the lights came up, Chloe turned to me. "I'm sorry," she said again. And for the first time, I believed her. The Monday after prom, Ridgeview High moved differently. The air itself seemed lighter, like the whole building had exhaled after holding its breath for years. I walked through the front doors expecting whispers, stares, maybe even another Diet Coke to the chest. Instead, Jessica Lou nodded at me from her locker. Actual acknowledgement. Like I was a person. Like this was normal. Emily's absence loomed larger than her presence ever had. Suspension, the rumor mill said. Maybe expulsion. No one seemed particularly broken up about it. Chloe wasn't at table 7. She wasn't at any table. I found her sitting on the floor by the art wing, knees pulled to her chest, staring at her phone. When my shadow fell across her screen, she flinched so hard she nearly dropped it. "Sorry," I said, not moving. "Didn't mean to scare you." She wiped at her eyes quickly. "It's fine." The screen showed a paused video, some drag performance, the Queen mid-death drop. Chloe hurriedly locked her phone. The silence stretched. I slid down the wall to sit beside her. "You were good. At prom, I mean." A shaky breath. I looked insane. "You looked free." She turned to me then, really looked at me, and I saw the cracks in her perfect facade. The smudged eyeliner she hadn't bothered to fix. The chipped nail polish. The raw redness around her nostrils from crying. "They were never my friends," she whispered. "I was just convenient." I thought about pointing out she'd still chosen them. Chosen to throw the drink. Chosen to laugh. But the words died when I saw her hands trembling. "Your mom," Chloe said suddenly. "Does she give lessons?" The question hung between us, fragile as a soap bubble. Somewhere down the hall, a locker slammed. The bell rang. "Yeah," I said, standing and offering a hand. "But first you have to survive homeroom." She took it. Her palm was sweaty. Mine probably was too. Mom turned our living room into a drag boot camp. Chloe showed up the first Friday after prom wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big and the terrified expression of someone walking into battle. "Relax, sugar," Mom said, handing her a mimosa, mostly orange juice. "We're just playing with eyeliner today. Nobody's expecting you to death drop by dinner." Chloe clutched the glass like a lifeline. "What if I'm bad at it?" Mom laughed, deep and rich. "Oh honey, everyone's bad at first." Jaden's first attempt at contour made him look like a half-melted wax figure. "Thanks for that," I muttered, setting out the makeup wipes. 3 hours later, Chloe emerged from the bathroom transformed. Not by the makeup, which was admittedly patchy, but by the grin splitting her face. "I did a wing," she announced, tilting her head to show off the uneven but determined flick of liquid liner. Mom applauded. "A start." I handed her a makeup wipe. "Welcome to the dark side." She took it, still smiling. "It's brighter over here, actually." School became different. Not perfect. Not even kind. But different. People who'd never spoken to me before started nodding in the halls. The drama kids adopted Chloe like a lost kitten. Marcus started an actual, school-approved LGBTQ+ alliance that met Tuesdays in the library. Emily came back after her suspension with less bluster, fewer followers. She still glared, still whispered, but the teeth had been pulled from her bite. Rumor had it her parents were making her transfer schools. "You feel bad for her," Chloe observed one afternoon as we watched Emily eat alone at what used to be table 7. I stirred my chocolate milk. "I feel something. Not sure it's bad." Chloe nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Graduation arrived faster than expected. Mom made me try on my cap and gown 6 times, fussing with the drape of the fabric. "My baby," she kept murmuring, like the words were being punched out of her. "My grown-ass baby." The ceremony was standard. Boring speeches, off-key choir performances, the occasional air horn from an over-enthusiastic relative. But when they called my name, something unexpected happened. The applause wasn't polite. It was deafening. Cheers, whistles, actual shouts. I nearly missed my name being called because of the noise. As I walked across that stage, I realized this was what change looked like. Not some grand moment, but 1,000 small ones. A shared glance. A hesitant question. A lip-sync performance that shouldn't have mattered but did. Mom hooped loud enough to embarrass me, and I loved her for it. Chloe, sitting with the drama kids now, gave me a double thumbs up. Even Principal Higgins cracked a smile as he handed me my diploma. Later, as we took photos on the football field, Chloe appeared at my elbow. "So," she said, shifting from foot to foot, "I was thinking of a name. For." She bit her lip. "My drag persona. If I, pursue that." The sun was setting behind her, painting everything gold. "Yeah. Violet," she said, testing the word. "Violet LaRue." I blinked. "Like?" "Not copying," she rushed. "Just, a tribute." Mom appeared behind us, throwing an arm around each of our shoulders. "Violet LaRue," she repeated, rolling the name around like fine wine. "I like it. Got panache." Chloe beamed. The future stretched before us, glittering and uncertain, and ours for the taking. The summer after graduation stretched long and humid, the kind of heat that made the pavement shimmer and the air feel like soup. I spent most of it working at the mall, folding shirts at a fast fashion place that made me itch just being inside. But every Friday night, without fail, Mom would pick me up after her late shift at the club, the car smelling like hairspray and cheap champagne, and we'd drive to the only 24-hour diner in town. It became our ritual. Her still in full drag, me in my work polo smelling like synthetic fabric, eating pancakes at midnight like we were the only people left in the world. One such night, she stirred her coffee absently, the sequins on her sleeves catching the fluorescent light. "You ever think about leaving?" I paused with a forkful of syrup-drenched pancake halfway to my mouth. "What, like, now?" She waved a hand. "Not tonight, baby. I mean this town. Ridgeview. All of it." I set my fork down, considering. The truth was, I'd thought about it every day since graduation. The way the sidewalks cracked in familiar patterns. The way the cashiers at the grocery store still sometimes looked at me like I might contaminate their produce. "Yeah," I admitted. "But where would I go?" Mom's smile was small, secretive. She reached into her purse and slid a brochure across the sticky table. LaRue School of Performing Arts, New York City. I stared at it. The glossy paper showed a brick building with rainbow flags hanging from the windows, students in outrageous outfits lounging on the front steps. "What is this?" Mom sipped her coffee. "My retirement plan. #### the revelation." Turns out, Mom had been planning this for years. Saving every tip, every paycheck from hosting drag brunches and bachelorette parties. The school was real. A tiny, barely accredited thing in Brooklyn that specialized in alternative performance arts. "And before you ask," she said, tapping the brochure, "yes, they already accepted you. Pending an audition. But please. Like that's an issue." I couldn't breathe. "You're serious?" "Deadass." "But the money, the move, all of it, already handled." She leaned back, smug. "Got an apartment lined up too. Tiny as hell, but it's got good light." I realized then what she wasn't saying. "You're coming with me." Her expression softened. Someone's gotta teach those kids how to tuck properly. ### Chloe's Crossroads. I told Chloe at our usual spot, the abandoned playground behind the old elementary school. She'd taken to dyeing her hair, the blonde now streaked with pastel pink. It suited her. "New York," she repeated, swinging gently on the rusted swing set. "That's big." "Yeah. You're really going?" I nodded. "Yeah." She kicked at the dirt, sending a pebble skittering. "I applied to community college. For theater arts." I grinned. "No shit. No shit." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Not exactly the big city, but it's a start," I finished. The chains of the swing creaked as we sat in silence, watching the sun dip behind the water tower. ### the last night. The going-away party was, predictably, at Mom's club. She'd closed it for a private event, Jaden's Last Hurrah, in glitter letters on the back wall. Marcus showed up with his new boyfriend, a shy film student from the next town over. Jessica brought pictures from her summer stock theater gig. Even Omar made an appearance, toting a camera to document the whole thing. And Chloe. She arrived fashionably late, in a leather jacket that looked suspiciously like something Regina might wear, her pink streaks glowing under the blacklights. "Nice jacket," I shouted over the music. She flipped the collar. "Stole it. Liar." She grinned, then hesitated. I have something for you." From her pocket, she produced a small rhinestone pin, a tiny, bedazzled J. "Now you'll match your mom," she said, pinning it clumsily to my denim vest. The music swelled. Mom took the stage for one last hometown performance. And as the bass shook the foundations, Chloe grabbed my hand and pulled me into the crowd, into the sweat and glitter and chaos, into whatever came next. The apartment was smaller than I imagined. Smaller than anything should legally be allowed to be, really. I stood in the doorway with my duffel bag digging into my shoulder, taking in the single room that would now be my entire world. A futon against one wall that I already knew would give me back problems. A kitchenette with exactly one working burner. A bathroom so tiny you could shower while sitting on the toilet if you wanted to. Home. Mom, no, Regina here, always Regina now, flounced past me, her sequin shawl catching on the doorframe. Well, what do you think? I stepped inside, my sneakers sticking slightly to the linoleum. It's a fire hazard. She laughed, tossing her keys onto the counter. It's historic and cheap. And most importantly, she threw open the lone window, letting in a blast of honking horns and shouting voices. It's New York, baby. The sound of the city rushed in, overwhelming and electric. I breathed it in, the exhaust fumes and the distant smell of street meat, the undeniable thrum of life happening just outside our shoebox. My stomach twisted in something between terror and exhilaration. Mom was already unpacking, her wigs taking up more space than our meager groceries would. Orientations tomorrow. You ready to be the small-town kid in the big bad city? I set my bag down carefully, like the floor might give way. What if I'm terrible? What if you're amazing? She paused, holding a pair of bedazzled heels. What if this is where you're supposed to be? The questions hung between us, too big for our tiny apartment. Outside, someone shouted in a language I didn't recognize. A siren wailed past. The radiator hissed. I sat on the futon. It creaked ominously. I miss Chloe. Mom's expression softened. She didn't offer platitudes, just nodded. Me too, baby. Me too. Orientation was a blur of names I'd immediately forget and icebreakers that made me want to crawl out of my skin. The other students were different. A girl with a shaved head and a septum piercing kept glaring at me like I'd personally offended her. A guy in what appeared to be a full leather harness introduced himself as Papi Chulo, before admitting his real name was Kevin. I sat in the back, trying to look both approachable and unapproachable at the same time. First rule of performing, the instructor, Madame Lacroix, a terrifying woman with a French accent I was 80% sure was fake, said, clapping her hands. You will embarrass yourself. You will fail. You will want to quit. She smiled sharply. Good. The girl next to me, a quiet Asian kid with blue streaks in her hair, whispered, Well, that's reassuring. I snorted before I could stop myself. She grinned. Lily, she offered. Jaden. We shook hands. Hers were ice cold. The weeks blurred together. Classes in movement. Stop walking like a Midwestern dad, Madame Lacroix barked at me. Classes in makeup application. Blend, for God's sake, it's not finger paint. Classes in the history of drag that Mom could have taught in her sleep. I called Chloe every Sunday. She was working at a diner back home, saving up for her own escape. Community college was fine, she said. Fine. Not New York. Not magic. But fine. You'd hate it here, I lied one night, staring at the water stain on our ceiling that looked vaguely like Dick Cheney. It's dirty and loud and everyone's kind of an asshole. Through the phone, I heard her shift, probably curled up in her childhood bed like I used to see her through her bedroom window when I'd walk home from school. Sounds perfect. Silence stretched. I counted the honks from the street below. Jaden. Her voice was small. Do you ever think about? All the time. I cut in because I did. Because prom night played on a loop in my head some days. Because no matter how many rhinestones I glued to my face in class, part of me was still that kid getting soda thrown on him in a high school cafeteria. Chloe exhaled. Me too. Mom got a gig at a proper club within a month. Not just hosting, performing. I went opening night, crammed into a booth with Lily and Kevin who insisted on being called Papi Chulo, watching as she took the stage in a gown made of what appeared to be actual mirrors. She killed, obviously. The crowd lost their minds. After, flushed with victory and cheap vodka, she collapsed into our booth. Well, she demanded. Lily actually bowed. I'm not worthy. Mom cackled, throwing an arm around me. Her skin was tacky with sweat and glitter. Your turn soon, baby. Just you wait. I smiled, pretending my stomach wasn't doing somersaults at the thought. The lights, the eyes, the judgment. The possibility of failing in front of all these people who seemed so much braver than me. Later, walking home through the too bright city night, Mom squeezed my hand. "You'll get there." I squeezed back, trying to believe her. The email came on a Tuesday. Subject line, Ridgeview Fall Fest. Come home. I stared at it for a full minute before opening. Some alumni committee wanted me specifically, to come back and give a talk or performance or something at the town's annual festival. "In light of your inspiring journey," the email gushed. I showed Mom over burnt toast the next morning. She nearly spit out her coffee. "Absolutely not. Obviously not. They don't deserve you." "I know." We ate in silence for a beat. "Unless," Mom said slowly. I groaned. "No. It would be iconic. It would be masochistic." She grinned. "Wicked." "Exactly." Chloe's voice was strained when I called her that night. "You're really considering it?" I paced our tiny apartment, nearly tripping over Mom's discarded heels. "I don't know. Part of me wants to show them how far I've come. The other part wants to never see that town again." Through the phone, I heard her take a deep breath. "If you come, I'll be there." Something in my chest tightened. Yeah. Outside, a car alarm wailed. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor shouted in Spanish. The city pulsed around me, alive and uncaring. "Okay," I said. "Okay, I'll do it." The bus ride back to Ridgeview felt like traveling through time. The sprawling city gave way to suburbs, then to fields, then to the familiar cracked sidewalks of my hometown. I texted Chloe my arrival time but hadn't heard back. The bus station was exactly as I remembered. Sticky floors, broken vending machines, the faint smell of urine. I hoisted my bag higher on my shoulder and stepped out into the weak autumn sun. And there she was. Chloe stood by the curb, her pink streaks faded but still visible, her hands shoved deep in the pockets of a leather jacket that was absolutely, definitely Regina's. She smiled when she saw me, small but real. "Welcome home," she said. I breathed in the familiar air. "Let's get this over with." The town hadn't changed. That was the first thing I noticed. The same cracked sidewalks, the same faded banners advertising the Fall Fest, the same sour smell from the paper mill on the edge of town. It was like Ridgeview had been preserved in amber while I'd been gone. Like no time had passed at all, even though everything inside me felt different. Chloe drove us through the streets in her beat-up Honda, the one she'd been saving for since junior year. The radio played some generic pop song, the kind we used to make fun of. Neither of us spoke for a while. "You nervous?" she finally asked, glancing at me. I watched the familiar houses blur past. "Should I be?" She shrugged. "People talk." I snorted. "When don't they?" The high school loomed ahead, just as ugly as I remembered. The Fall Fest banners were strung up across the front entrance, the same way they'd been every year since I could remember. Only this time, my name was on them. Special performance by Jaden Carter, NYC Drag Sensation. I stared at it. "They're overselling it." Chloe parked and killed the engine. "They're scared of you." That made me pause. "What?" She turned to me, her eyes serious. "You left. You made it. That's more than most of them will ever do. Of course they're scared." Hashtag the festival. The Fall Fest was exactly as tacky as I remembered. Overpriced carnival games, greasy food trucks, and the same tired cover band playing on the makeshift stage. But this year, there was a new addition. A smaller, second stage near the back, draped in rainbow bunting. My stage. Principal Higgins spotted me first. He looked older, his hair grayer, but his smile was the same strained one he'd given me every time I'd been in his office. "Jaden, so glad you could make it." I shook his hand. "Wouldn't miss it." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "There's been some pushback about your performance." I raised an eyebrow. "From who?" He didn't answer, but his eyes flicked toward a group of parents clustered near the concession stand. Their stares were icy. Chloe stepped closer to me, her shoulder brushing mine. "Ignore them." The confrontation asterisk. I should have known Emily would show up. She looked different, still put together, still sharp-edged. but there was something hollow about her now. Her friends from high school were gone, replaced by a guy in a polo shirt who looked like he'd been cloned from every finance bro in existence. "Jaden," she said, her voice dripping with the same fake sweetness I remembered. "I almost didn't recognize you." I crossed my arms. "What do you want, Emily?" She smiled, all teeth. "Just saying hello. Heard you're some big star now." "Not yet," I said. "But I'm getting there." Her boyfriend, because of course that's who he was, glanced between us. "You know each other?" Emily's grip on his arm tightened. "We went to high school together." Chloe, who had been silent until now, let out a quiet laugh. "That's one way to put it." Emily's smile faltered. For a second, I saw the girl from prom night, the one who'd lunged, who'd screamed, who'd lost control. Then it was gone, smoothed over. "Good luck with your performance," she said, before dragging her boyfriend away. Chloe exhaled. "She hasn't changed." I watched Emily disappear into the crowd. "Yeah, she has." Backstage, if you could call a curtained-off area behind the tiny stage backstage. I paced, my heart pounding. I'd performed in New York, in actual clubs. But this felt bigger. Chloe handed me a water bottle. "You're gonna kill it." I wiped my palms on my jeans. "What if I bomb?" "Then you bomb." She shrugged. "But you'll have bombed in front of them, on your terms. That's still winning." The stage manager, a frazzled parent volunteer, waved me over. "You're on." The crowd was bigger than I expected. Kids from school, parents, curious onlookers. And in the back, Emily and her boyfriend, watching. I took a deep breath and stepped into the spotlight. I don't remember much of the performance itself. Just flashes, the heat of the lights, the way my voice sounded amplified, the scattered applause that grew louder as I went on. But I remember the silence afterward, the way the crowd just stared. Then from the back, a slow clap. Chloe, standing there, grinning like an idiot, clapping like I just delivered the performance of a lifetime. One by one, others joined in. Not everyone, not even close, but enough. As I walked off stage, my legs shaky, Chloe pulled me into a hug. "Told you," she whispered. I held on tighter than I meant to. The decision ***. We sat on the hood of Chloe's car later, sharing a greasy paper cone of fries. The festival was winding down, the lights flickering off one by one. "You were amazing," Chloe said around a mouthful of fries. I leaned back, staring at the stars. It felt good, being here, doing that. She nodded, like she understood. "You coming back?" I thought about New York, about the tiny apartment, the classes, the city that still didn't quite feel like home. Then I thought about Ridgeview, about the way the air smelled in the fall, about Chloe, sitting beside me. "I don't know," I admitted. She bumped her shoulder against mine. "Well, whatever you decide." "Yeah." She smiled. "I'll be here." The bus back to New York left at 6:15 a.m. I stood in the empty station, my duffel bag at my feet, staring at the ticket in my hand. One way. No takebacks. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Chloe hadn't come to see me off. We'd said our goodbyes the night before, standing outside the diner where she worked, the neon sign flickering behind her. Asterisk. "You're really going back?" Asterisk, she'd asked, her breath visible in the cold air. I'd nodded. Asterisk. "I have to." Asterisk. She hadn't argued. Just hugged me, quick and tight, before disappearing inside. Now, the intercom crackled. Asterisk. Now boarding, I picked up my bag. Then my phone buzzed. A text. From Chloe. "Look behind you." I turned. She was there, leaning against the station's grimy wall, a backpack slung over one shoulder. "What are you doing?" I asked. She pushed off the wall and walked toward me. "I quit my job." I stared at her. "What?" And I told my parents I'm moving to New York. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the nervous tremor in her hands. "If that's okay." The intercom announced final boarding. I looked at my ticket, then at Chloe. then back at the ticket. She swallowed. I mean, I get it if you don't want. I grabbed her hand. Come on. We're gonna miss our bus. Mom's scream when she opened the door could have shattered glass. Asterisk, Chloe. Asterisk. Chloe waved awkwardly from behind me. Hi, Regina. Mom yanked us both inside, already talking a mile a minute. Oh my God, I have to call the landlord. We need another mattress. No, wait. You two can share the futon for now. Jaden, why didn't you tell me? I dropped my bag. It was kind of a last-minute decision. Chloe, still shell-shocked from Mom's whirlwind greeting, blinked at our tiny apartment. This is cozy. Mom threw an arm around her shoulders. Welcome home, baby. New York with Chloe was different. She got a job at a diner in Brooklyn, the kind with sticky tables and surly waitstaff who took no shit. I started picking up more gigs, small performances at dive bars, hosting open mic nights. Mom got me an in at her club. It wasn't glamorous. We were broke more often than not. The futon was hell on our backs. But we made it work. Then, one rainy Tuesday, Chloe came home with a flyer. Asterisk, drag queen bingo. Hostess wanted. Asterisk. She shoved it at me, her hair dripping from the rain. You should audition. I took the flyer. It's at a gay bar in Chelsea. So, I looked at her. So that's like a real gig. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, no shit. You're a real performer. Mom, eavesdropping from the kitchenette, cackled. She's got you there. The bar smelled like sweat and cheap beer. The stage was tiny, the mic crackled, and the lighting was unforgiving. I killed it. The manager, a gruff bear of a man named Tony, offered me the job on the spot. You're raw, he said, lighting a cigarette. Asterisk, but you've got spark. Asterisk. I called Chloe from the street outside, my hands shaking. I got it, I breathed. Her scream nearly blew out my eardrum. That night, we celebrated with cheap champagne from the bodega. Mom toasted to my kids, making it big, even though we were still crammed in a shoebox apartment eating ramen. Chloe, flushed and giggly from half a glass of champagne, leaned against me. Asterisk, what's next? Asterisk. I thought about it. About Ridgeview. About the stage at Fall Fest. About the way the spotlight felt when I stepped into it. More, I said. She clinked her glass against mine. Asterisk, more. Asterisk. Outside, the city hummed, endless and alive. The alarm went off at 6 a.m. sharp. I groaned, slapping at my phone until the noise stopped. Next to me, Chloe mumbled something unintelligible and buried her face deeper into the pillow. Sunlight filtered through the cheap blinds, striping the futon in gold. 3 months. That's how long we'd been in New York together. 3 months of cramped living and diner shifts and dragging ourselves home at ungodly hours smelling like fry grease and stage makeup. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. The apartment was quiet. Mom had a late gig last night and wouldn't be up for hours. Chloe's hand found mine under the tangled sheets. Time, she slurred. Early, I said. Go back to sleep. She made a noise that was half protest, half snore, and was out again. I padded to the kitchenette, stepping over Mom's discarded heels and a pile of feather boas. The coffee maker sputtered to life, its familiar gurgle blending with the sounds of the city waking up outside. My phone buzzed. A text from Tony. Big crowd last night. Tips were good. You're on again Friday. I smiled, leaning against the counter. It wasn't much, but it was something. A start. Chloe left for her shift at the diner by 8 o'clock, her hair hastily pulled back, her uniform wrinkled. I kissed her goodbye at the door, tasting coffee and sleep. Don't forget, she said, pulling on her jacket. We're meeting Lily at that thrift store after your class. I groaned. Do we have to? She fixed me with a look. You need new clothes that aren't just black t-shirts. I like black t-shirts. She rolled her eyes and left, the door clicking shut behind her. The apartment was quiet again. I sipped my coffee, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. Dick Cheney still watching over me. Madame LaCroix's studio smelled like sweat and lavender. Today's lesson, embodying character through movement, which basically meant strutting around in heels while she critiqued our posture. "You!" She pointed at me with her cane. "Stop walking like a frightened deer." I adjusted the borrowed stilettos, 3 inches higher than I was used to, and tried again. Lily, balanced effortlessly in her own heels, smirked. "Graceful." I flipped her off. Madame LaCroix sighed. "Children." Lily and Chloe were already elbow-deep in the discount rack when I arrived. "Took you long enough," Lily said, holding up a hideous paisley shirt. "This is you." I grimaced. "That's a crime against fashion." Chloe laughed, pulling out a leather jacket that looked suspiciously like something Regina would wear. "What about this?" I took it, running my fingers over the worn leather. "Not bad." Lily raised an eyebrow. "You're blushing." "I am not." Chloe grinned, plucking the jacket from my hands. "Try it on." I did. It fit perfectly. The text came as we were leaving the store, arms full of cheap finds. Unknown number. "Hey, it's Emily." I stopped walking. Chloe peered over my shoulder. "What the hell?" The message continued. "I'm in the city this weekend. Can we talk?" Lily whistled. "Drama." I stared at the screen. Emily hadn't spoken to me since Fall Fest. "Why now?" Chloe's fingers brushed mine. "You don't have to answer." I knew that. But part of me, the part that still remembered high school, the part that had stood on that stage in Ridgeview and finally felt seen, wanted to know. I typed back. "Why?" The response was immediate. "Because I owe you an apology. For real this time." We sat on the fire escape that night, sharing a bottle of cheap wine. The city sprawled below us, endless and glittering. "You gonna meet her?" Chloe asked, her feet dangling over the edge. I took a swig from the bottle. "I don't know." She nodded, like she understood. "Could be good closure. Or it could be a disaster." She bumped her shoulder against mine. "Then I'll be there to pick up the pieces." I handed her the bottle. "You do that." She took a sip, her lips stained purple. "Obviously." I leaned into her, the city humming around us. The coffee shop Emily chose was one of those overly trendy places in Soho where the drinks cost more than my hourly wage and the baristas looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I arrived early, nursing an iced coffee I couldn't really afford, my knee bouncing under the table. Chloe had offered to come with me. I'd told her no. This was something I needed to do alone. The bell above the door jingled. Emily walked in. She looked different. Not just the clothes, though the sleek black dress and understated jewelry were a far cry from her Ridgeview pastels, but the way she carried herself. Less sharp edges, more tired resignation. She spotted me and hesitated before approaching. "Hey," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Hey." An awkward silence settled between us. The espresso machine hissed in the background. Emily toyed with the strap of her designer bag. "Thanks for meeting me." I shrugged. Curiosity, mostly. A ghost of a smile. "Fair." The barista called out an order. Someone laughed too loud near the window. Emily took a breath. "I'm sorry." I waited. "For everything," she continued, her voice quieter now. "The drink. The prom. All of it." I studied her face. The faint lines around her eyes that hadn't been there in high school. The way her fingers trembled slightly against the tabletop. "Why now?" She looked down. "I got engaged." I blinked. "Congratulations." "To Mark. You met him at the Fall Fest. The finance bro clone." I remembered. Emily continued. "He's traditional. His family is very traditional." She swallowed. "They don't know about Ridgeview. About the person I was there." The pieces clicked into place. "And you're worried I'll out you." Her head snapped up. "No. I mean," she deflated. "Maybe. A little." I sipped my coffee. It had gone watery. "I'm not that person anymore," she said, almost pleading. "I've changed." I thought about Chloe asleep on our futon that morning. About Mom's proud smile after my first real gig. About the leather jacket currently draped over the back of our one kitchen chair. "People don't change that much," I said finally. Emily's face fell. "But," I added, They can try. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since sitting down. Do you think I'm trying? I thought about high school. About the way she'd lunged at Chloe at prom. About the fear in Chloe's eyes when she'd warned me about the fire alarm. Then I thought about the email inviting me back to Ridgeview. About standing on that stage. About second chances. I think, I said slowly, that's between you and yourself. Emily nodded, her eyes suspiciously bright. That's fair. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, a cab honked. I should go, she said, standing abruptly. Thank you for meeting me. I watched her gather her things. Emily, she paused. If you're really sorry, I said, be better. Her grip tightened on her bag. I will. Then she was gone, the bell jingling behind her. I texted Chloe. You were right. It was good closure. Her reply came instantly. Told you. Now get home. I stole your jacket. I smiled, tossing my empty cup in the trash. The jacket incident turned into a week-long argument. Chloe insisted it looked better on her. I maintained that stealing my clothes, especially after I just paid good money for them, was a federal offense. Mom refereed from the kitchen, stirring her morning cocktail with a butter knife. It's called sharing a life together, baby, she said, licking the knife clean. Get used to it. Chloe stuck her tongue out at me from across the futon, the jacket sleeves pooling over her hands. I threw a pillow at her. She dodged, laughing, and suddenly we were 17 again. Back in Ridgeview, back when everything was simpler and harder all at once. The moment broke when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Another secret admirer? Chloe teased, crawling over to peek. I opened the message, then stared. Jaden Carter? This is Mateo from Club Chroma. Saw your set at Tony's place. We've got a hosting slot opening up. You interested? Chloe's breath hitched against my shoulder. Holy shit! Club Chroma wasn't just some dive bar. It was one of the biggest gay clubs in the city. The kind of place with actual celebrities in the VIP section sometimes. My fingers hovered over the screen. This has to be a mistake. Chloe snatched the phone from me and typed back, hell yes, he's interested, before I could stop her. Chloe! What? She grinned, tossing the phone onto the cushions. Now you can't overthink it. Mom raised her glass. To nepotism. I groaned, flopping back onto the futon. I'm gonna bomb so hard. Chloe laid her head on my chest. Then you'll bomb spectacularly. The audition was in 3 days. I spent them in a haze of panic and preparation, running my hosting bits past Chloe, begging Mom for tips, even practicing in front of the cracked mirror in our bathroom. The morning of, I woke up to find Chloe already dressed, her hair neatly braided, holding 2 coffees and a paper bag. Breakfast, she said, nudging me awake. And before you ask, no, you're not allowed to cancel. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. I wasn't going to. Liar. She handed me a coffee. Eat. We're leaving in 20. The bag contained my favorite breakfast sandwich from the bodega downstairs. I took a bite, the grease and cheese settling my nerves slightly. You didn't have to do all this. Chloe shrugged, pulling on her shoes. I know. Something warm unfurled in my chest. I reached for her hand. Thank you. She squeezed my fingers. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen the outfit I picked out for you. Club Chroma was everything I'd imagined and more. Pulsing lights, a massive dance floor, a stage with actual professional lighting rigs. The backstage area alone was bigger than our entire apartment. Mateo, a sharply dressed man with salt and pepper hair, greeted us at the bar. You must be Jaden. I nodded, suddenly unable to speak. He looked me up and down, then smiled. Cute. Tony wasn't exaggerating. Turning to Chloe. And you are. His better half, Chloe said smoothly, shaking Mateo's hand. Also his stylist, therapist, and occasional hype woman. Mateo laughed. We could use more of those around here. He gestured toward the stage. Ready to show me what you've got? The lights were brighter than I expected, the mic heavier in my hand. From the shadows of the empty club, Chloe gave me a thumbs up. I took a deep breath. and began. They offered me the job on the spot. Thursday nights to start, baby drag hour, Mateo called it, with the potential for more if I drew a crowd. I floated out of the club, the contract clutched in my hand, Chloe bouncing beside me. I told you, she crowed, spinning on the sidewalk. I fucking told you. I grabbed her waist, lifting her off the ground as she shrieked with laughter. We have to celebrate. Obviously. She wrapped her arms around my neck. But first, she plucked the contract from my fingers. We're framing this. As we walked toward the subway, her hand in mine, the city noise faded into background static. For the first time since leaving Ridgeview, I didn't feel like an imposter. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I belonged here. That night, curled together on the futon, Chloe traced idle patterns on my arm. Do you ever think about going back? To Ridgeview, I mean. I thought about Emily's apology, about the stage at Fall Fest, about the way the air smelled right before rain. Sometimes, Chloe was quiet for a long moment. Then, me too. I turned to look at her. Really? She shrugged. Not to stay. Just to visit. To show them how far we've come. Outside, a siren wailed. The radiator hissed. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing old Whitney Houston too loud. I kissed her forehead. Maybe someday. She smiled, snuggling closer. Someday. The dressing room at Club Chroma smelled like hairspray and adrenaline. I sat at the vanity, staring at my reflection under the harsh bulbs. My foundation a shade too light, my eyebrows too dark, my lips lined in a color called Drag Queen Red that Mom had shoved into my hands last week. Chloe leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You're sweating off your highlight. I wiped my forehead with a tissue. I think I'm gonna throw up. She stepped forward, adjusting the collar of my shirt, a silky black thing we'd found at the thrift store last minute. You're gonna kill it. The door burst open before I could respond. Mom swept in, resplendent in a gold sequin gown, her wig towering nearly a foot above her head. Places, baby. They're introducing you in 5. My stomach lurched. Chloe grabbed my hand and squeezed. Breathe. I breathed. The lights were blinding. The music pounded through my bones. The crowd, a sea of glitter and expectant faces, cheered as I stepped up to the mic. Welcome to Club Chroma, you beautiful sinners. My voice boomed through the speakers, steadier than I felt. I'm Jaden Carter, and tonight, we're gonna have some fun. The applause was louder than I expected. A few whistles pierced the noise. Someone shouted, "Work, bitch!" I grinned, the nerves melting away. First up, who here is single and ready to mingle? The crowd roared. Halfway through my set, during a particularly raucous round of drag bingo, I spotted her. Emily. She stood near the back, wearing a simple black dress, her engagement ring glinting under the lights. Next to her, Mark looked profoundly uncomfortable, his tie slightly askew. Our eyes met. She raised her glass. I almost missed my cue. Backstage after the show, my hand still shaking from adrenaline, Chloe handed me a water bottle. You were amazing. Mom appeared, kissing both my cheeks. My baby. A star. Mateo clapped me on the shoulder. Thursday nights are yours. Starting next week. I was still processing that when the door cracked open. Emily stood there, hesitating. Can I come in? Mom and Chloe exchanged a look. We'll give you 2 a minute, Mom said, ushering Chloe out. The door clicked shut. Emily exhaled. You were really good. I wiped at my smudged makeup with a tissue. Thanks. Silence stretched between us. The bass from the club thumped through the walls. I wanted to see you, she said finally. In your element. I studied her face, the careful makeup, the way she worried her engagement ring. Why? She looked down. To remind myself what courage looks like. The honesty of it startled me. Mark appeared in the doorway, clearing his throat. Emily? We should go. She nodded, turning back to me. Congratulations, Jaden. Then she was gone. The city was alive around us, neon signs reflecting in puddles, the hum of traffic constant. Chloe swung our clasped hands between us. "You okay?" she asked. I thought about Emily's face in the crowd. The way she'd watched me like I was something extraordinary. "Yeah, I think I am." Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder as we walked. "Good." #### the future. The apartment was dark when we got home. Mom already passed out in her room. Chloe and I collapsed onto the futon, exhausted but buzzing. "You realize," she murmured, curling into my side, "this is just the beginning, right?" Outside, a siren wailed. The radiator clanked. The city pulsed around us, endless and full of possibility. "Yeah," I said, kissing the top of her head. "I know." The first Thursday night at Club Chroma was supposed to be my big break. Instead, the fire alarm went off 15 minutes into my set. Not a sabotage this time, just faulty wiring in the ancient building. But as we all spilled onto the sidewalk, the crowd groaning and laughing in equal measure, I couldn't help the déjà vu. Chloe found me leaning against the brick wall, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. "You okay?" I exhaled smoke toward the sky. "Is this karma?" She stole the cigarette from my fingers, taking a drag. "Nah, just New York being New York." Mateo appeared, sweating through his dress shirt. "We're moving the party next door to Bar Sinister. You up for it?" I looked at Chloe. She grinned. "Let's go," I said. ###the after hours. Bar Sinister was smaller, darker, and smelled faintly of mildew. But the crowd didn't care. They packed in tight, cheering when I climbed onto the makeshift stage, really just a cleared-out corner with some LED strips taped to the walls. Without the fancy lights and sound system, the show became something raw, intimate. I told stories between songs, about Ridgeview, about prom, about the time Mom accidentally glued her eyelashes to her forehead before a performance. The crowd ate it up. After, a woman in a pantsuit pressed a business card into my hand. "I produce a little drag brunch downtown," she said. "We'd love to have you." Chloe's eyes widened when she saw the name on the card. "That's the most popular brunch spot in Chelsea." I pocketed the card, trying to play it cool. My hands were shaking again. #### the morning after. Mom was already up when we stumbled in at 4 a.m., mixing a Bloody Mary at the kitchen counter. "Well," I tossed the business card onto the table. She screamed loud enough to wake our neighbors. #### the routine. Thursdays at Chroma. Sundays at brunch. Rehearsals in between. The days blurred together, late nights and early mornings, glitter that never quite washed out of my pores, Chloe falling asleep on my shoulder during late-night subway rides. We upgraded from the futon to an actual mattress. It barely fit in our corner of the apartment, but it felt like luxury. Mom started calling me her famous offspring. I started believing her. #### the call. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. Unknown upstate number. I almost didn't answer. "Jaden Carter?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "Yeah. This is Miriam Klein from the Hudson Valley Pride Committee. We saw your video from Club Chroma and were wondering if you'd be interested in headlining our festival next month." I nearly dropped the phone. Chloe, watching from the kitchenette, mouthed, "What?" I swallowed. "Where exactly is this festival?" "Ridgeview," the woman said. "First annual." The room spun. #### the decision. Chloe stared at the email confirmation. "We're really doing this?" I paced the length of the apartment. 5 steps, turn, 5 steps back. It's a paid gig. Good exposure. Aha. She crossed her arms. "And it has nothing to do with showing up your hometown?" I stopped pacing. "Okay. Maybe a little." She grinned. "That's my drag queen." #### the return. The bus to Ridgeview looked exactly the same. Same sticky seats. Same broken AC. Same nervous twist in my gut as the city skyline faded behind us. Chloe squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, we've got this." I leaned my head against the window, watching the suburbs blur past. "Yeah, we do." The Ridgeview town limit sign looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling around the edges, and someone had tagged the bottom with spray paint that had only been half-heartedly covered up. The bus rolled past it with a lurch, and my stomach did the same. Chloe sat beside me, her knee bouncing. She hadn't said much since we'd boarded, just held my hand tight enough that I could feel her pulse against my fingers. "You good?" she asked, glancing at me. I nodded, but my throat was too dry to answer. The bus station hadn't changed either. Same cracked pavement, same flickering fluorescent lights inside. But this time, there was a small crowd waiting. Marcus stood at the front, holding a sign that read Ridgeview's Finest Drag Queen, in glitter letters. Beside him, Jessica and Omar waved wildly. I stepped off the bus, and Marcus hooped loud enough to startle a pigeon. "Look who finally came home." Chloe laughed as Jessica pulled her into a hug. Omar clapped me on the back. "Dude, your eyeliner in that last Instagram video? Flawless." I grinned. "Thanks, man." Marcus slung an arm around my shoulders. "Pride setup starts in an hour. You ready to show these losers what they've been missing?" I looked around, at the familiar streets, the same shops, the ghosts of my past lurking in every corner. Then at Chloe, already bickering with Jessica about something. Her face lit up in the afternoon sun. "Yeah," I said. "Let's do it." The park where they'd set up Pride was nothing like the Fall Fest. Rainbow banners hung between the trees, a proper stage stood at the center, and the air smelled like fresh grass and funnel cake instead of cheap beer and regret. Miriam Klein, the organizer, rushed over as soon as she saw me. "Jaden, we're so thrilled you're here." She shook my hand vigorously. "Your set is at 7, but feel free to check out the stage anytime." Chloe squeezed my arm. "We'll take a look." As we walked through the growing crowd, I caught snippets of conversation. People whispering my name, pointing, some smiling, some not. A little kid in a rainbow tutu stared at me with wide eyes before her mom hurried her away. The stage was bigger than I'd expected. Solid. Professional. I climbed the steps and stood at the center, looking out at the empty field that would soon be packed with people. Chloe leaned against the railing. "Nervous?" I swallowed. "Terrified?" She smirked. "Good." The show started at sunset. The field was packed. People from town, people from neighboring counties, even a few faces I recognized from high school lingering at the back. I stood in the wings, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Chloe adjusted my bow tie one last time. "Knock 'em dead." Then the announcer called my name. The roar of the crowd hit me like a physical force. The lights blinded me as I stepped out, but I didn't stumble, didn't falter. I took the mic. "Ridgeview," I said, my voice carrying over the hushed audience. "Long time no see." A laugh rippled through the crowd. I smiled. "Let's have some fun." The performance was a blur. The songs, the jokes, the way the crowd screamed when I brought Chloe on stage for a ridiculous lip-sync battle. The way the little kid in the rainbow tutu danced at the front, her mom laughing beside her. And then, near the end, I saw her. Emily. She stood at the edge of the crowd, no mark in sight, just watching. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. I raised the mic. "This one's for anyone who's ever been told they don't belong." The opening notes of "This Is Me" filled the air. After the show, as the crowd dispersed and the lights dimmed, Chloe found me sitting on the edge of the stage, my legs dangling over the side. She sat beside me, our shoulders touching. "You did it." I exhaled, long and slow. "Yeah." The stars were just starting to come out. Somewhere in the distance, laughter echoed. Chloe rested her head on my shoulder. "Where to next?" I looked at her, at the girl who had stood by me through everything, who had followed me to New York, who had stolen my jacket and my heart and somehow made my life brighter for it. "Anywhere," I said. She smiled. "Anywhere." The train back to New York rattled through the darkness, the rhythmic clacking of the tracks the only sound in our quiet compartment. Chloe slept with her head against the window, her breath fogging the glass. I watched the occasional lights flash by, tiny towns flickering past, each one a life I could have lived if things had gone differently. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Mateo. Asterisk, saw the videos from Ridgeview. Packed house. You're on the main stage Friday. Asterisk. I stared at the words until they blurred. The main stage at Club Chroma wasn't just Thursday nights anymore. It was Friday prime time. It was real. Chloe stirred, blinking sleepily at me. "You okay?" I showed her the text. Her tired face split into a grin. "Told you." I leaned back, closing my eyes. The train carried us forward. Always forward. The apartment smelled like coffee and burnt toast when we stumbled in at dawn. Mom was already up, wrapped in a silk robe, her makeup done to perfection despite the early hour. "Well?" she demanded, hands on her hips. I tossed my bag onto the mattress. "Friday nights now." She screamed loud enough to wake the neighbors, again, and immediately started rifling through her closet. "You'll need the blue sequin jumpsuit." "No, the red one." "No." Chloe collapsed onto the mattress, laughing. "Regina, it's 5 a.m. And? Aunt waits for no one." Mom emerged with an armful of fabric. "Try this on." I held up what appeared to be a cape made entirely of feathers. "I'm not wearing this." "You will if you know what's good for you." Friday came faster than expected. The dressing room at Chroma was bigger this time. An actual room with my name on the door, not just a curtained-off corner. Chloe helped me into the ridiculous feather cape, her fingers brushing my shoulders as she fastened it. "You look insane." I adjusted my wig in the mirror. "Good insane or bad insane?" She kissed my cheek, leaving a red lipstick mark. "The best kind." The knock at the door came right on time. Mateo peeked in, eyebrows raised. "That's a look." I sighed. "Blame Regina." He chuckled. 5 minutes. The door closed. My hands shook. Chloe caught them in hers. "Hey, look at me." I did. "You've got this," she said, simple and sure. I breathed. "Yeah." The lights were hotter on the main stage. The crowd was louder. The music pounded through me like a second heartbeat. I stepped up to the mic. "New York." I shouted. "You ready?" The roar that answered shook the walls. After the show, a man in a sleek suit approached me at the bar. "Jaden Carter?" I wiped sweat from my brow. "That's me." He handed me a card. "I'm with Lux Talent. We represent some of the biggest names in drag. I'd love to talk." Chloe, perched on the stool beside me, nearly choked on her drink. I stared at the card. "Seriously?" The man smiled. "Seriously?" We celebrated at the diner where Chloe used to work, crammed into a booth with Mom, Marcus, who'd driven down for the show, and Lily. The coffee was terrible. The fries were perfect. Mom raised her glass. "To my baby, officially outshining me." I rolled my eyes. "Never gonna happen." Lily snorted. "Keep telling yourself that." Marcus threw a fry at her. "Let him have his moment." Chloe leaned into my side, her laughter vibrating through me. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. This was it. This was everything. Later, as we walked home through the sleeping city, Chloe laced her fingers through mine. "So, what now?" I looked up at the sky. No stars visible, just the endless glow of the city. But somewhere beyond the light pollution, they were still there, still shining. "Now," I said, squeezing her hand. "We keep going." The offices of Lux Talent took up the entire 22nd floor of a midtown high-rise. The elevator ride up made my ears pop. Chloe squeezed my hand as the doors slid open to reveal a sleek, all-white reception area where a woman with perfect eyebrows looked up from her computer. "Jaden Carter?" she asked, though we were the only ones there. I nodded, suddenly aware of how out of place we looked. Me in my thrifted blazer, Chloe in her diner sneakers with the frayed laces. "Mr. Duval will see you now." The hallway to his office seemed to stretch forever, lined with framed photos of celebrities I recognized from TV. My palms were sweating. Sebastian Duval stood when we entered, all sharp cheekbones and expensive cologne. "Jaden!" Finally. He shook my hand, then Chloe's. "And you must be the infamous Chloe." She raised an eyebrow. "Infamous?" He grinned. "Tony at Chroma wouldn't stop raving about you both." I sat in the chair he offered, trying not to fidget. "So, what exactly does Lux Talent want with me?" Sebastian steepled his fingers. A nationwide tour. Monthly features in Drag Queen magazine. Possible hosting gigs. He slid a contract across the glass desk. We want to make you a star. The numbers on the page swam before my eyes. Chloe whistled low under her breath. Mom cried when we told her. Actual tears running down her carefully contoured cheeks. My baby, she wailed, crushing me in a hug that smelled like hairspray and Chanel No. 5. On a real tour. I extracted myself gently. It's just some club dates. Nothing crazy. She waved a hand. It's everything. Chloe was quieter that night, staring at the contract spread across our tiny kitchen table. You okay? I asked, nudging her foot with mine. She looked up, forcing a smile. Yeah, just thinking. I knew that look. About. She traced a finger over the tour dates. 3 months straight across the country. What happens to us when you're gone? The question hung between us, heavy as the city air. I took her hand. You come with me. Her eyes widened. What about my job? My classes? I kissed her knuckles. We'll figure it out. The first leg of the tour kicked off in Boston. The club was packed. The energy electric. I killed my set, signed autographs afterward, even got recognized on the street the next day. It should have felt like victory. But the hotel bed was too big without Chloe beside me. I called her after the show, her face pixelated on my phone screen. You should have seen it, I said, propping the phone against the bathroom mirror as I wiped off my makeup. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I wish I was there. Next time, I promised. But next time was Chicago, then LA, then Seattle, and each city blurred into the next. Airport terminals, green room snacks, the same jokes night after night to different faces. The texts from Chloe grew shorter, the time between calls longer. I came home to an empty apartment after 6 weeks on the road. No Chloe, no note, just Mom sitting at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of tea. She's at Jessica's, she said before I could ask. I dropped my bag. What happened? Mom sighed. You left, baby. I was working, and she was here. Mom pushed the second mug toward me. Living the same life while yours exploded. I sank into the chair, the truth settling over me like a weight. I messed up. Mom sipped her tea. Fix it. I found Chloe on the roof of Jessica's building, wrapped in a blanket despite the summer heat. She didn't look surprised to see me. I'm sorry, I said, the wind carrying the words between us. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. For what? For not seeing it. For not asking you to come sooner. I sat beside her, our knees brushing. For being an idiot. The city stretched below us, endless and alive. Chloe leaned into me. You were just living your dream. Yeah, I said, wrapping an arm around her. But it's not my dream without you. She turned her face into my shoulder. I felt her breath hitch. I reworked the tour schedule, I said quietly. Fewer dates. More time home. And I took a deep breath. They want you too. She pulled back. What? Lux needs a social media manager for their drag division. Someone who gets the scene. I wiped at her tears with my thumb. I may have suggested you. Chloe stared at me. Then she punched my arm. You asshole. I grinned. Is that a yes? She kissed me instead of answering, her lips warm and familiar. And for the first time in weeks, everything felt right. The Lux talent offices felt different this time. Maybe it was the way Chloe walked beside me with her new employee badge swinging from her lanyard. Or maybe it was the way Sebastian actually stood up when we entered instead of making us wait. Either way, the air smelled less like intimidation and more like possibility. Jaden. Chloe. Sebastian gestured to the chairs across from his desk. Good to see you both. Chloe sat first, her notebook already open. We have some ideas. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. We. I leaned forward. Turns out we make a pretty good team. Hashtag the pitch. Chloe's hands didn't shake as she passed Sebastian the proposal. A digital series. Behind the scenes of the drag world. Real stories, real people. Sebastian scanned the first page. And you want to host? I nodded. With Chloe producing. We've got the access, the relationships. And the authenticity, Chloe added. Sebastian tapped his pen against the desk. It's risky. Most networks want polished reality TV, not. He flipped a page. Whatever this is. Chloe met his gaze. Exactly. ####the compromise. They gave us a trial run, 3 episodes, minimal budget, airing on their streaming platform. If the numbers were good, we'd get more. If not, well, Chloe said as we left the building, no pressure. I grabbed her hand. We've got this. ####the first shoot. Mom's dressing room was chaos as usual. Wigs everywhere, half-empty coffee cups littering every surface. She blinked at the camera Chloe had set up. You're filming me putting on lashes? Chloe adjusted the lighting. People want to see the real you. Mom snorted. God help them. But when the footage played back later, even she had to admit there was magic in it. The unvarnished truth of transformation, the quiet moments before the spotlight. ###the response. The first episode dropped on a Tuesday. By Friday it had gone viral. My phone blew up with messages. From Marcus, from Lily, even from Emily, just a simple heart emoji, but still. The Lux higher-ups called an emergency meeting. Sebastian looked like he'd won the lottery. We want 6 more episodes. And a live special. Chloe squeezed my hand under the table. #### the catch. The contract was thicker this time. More zeros. More clauses. And one particular line that made Chloe freeze. Asterisk, all creative decisions subject to network approval. Asterisk. She looked up at Sebastian. What does this mean? He smiled his polished smile. It means we help shape the content. To maximize appeal. I watched Chloe's face shut down. I see. #### the fight. We didn't speak until we got home. Chloe slammed her bag onto the counter. They want to turn it into some scripted bullshit. I rubbed my temples. It's not that bad. Not that bad. She whirled on me. They want to manufacture drama between you and Regina. They want rivalry storylines with other queens. This isn't what we pitched. I knew she was right. But I also saw the opportunity, the security, the platform. Maybe we can find a middle ground. Chloe went very still. Is that what you want? The question hung between us, heavier than I expected. #### the decision. I found Sebastian at his desk the next morning. We're out, I said. He didn't look surprised. The offer stands for you alone, you know. I thought of Chloe's face when she talked about the project. The way her eyes lit up when she framed the perfect shot. I know, I said and walked out. #### the backlash. Lux pulled the remaining episodes. My tour dates got rescheduled indefinitely. The industry whispers started almost immediately. Difficult to work with, unrealistic expectations. Mom made martinis that night, strong enough to make my eyes water. Welcome to showbiz, baby. Chloe stared into her glass. I'm sorry. I took her hand. Don't be. #### the new plan. We filmed the next episode in our living room. Just me and Chloe, talking straight to camera about why we walked away. No fancy lighting. No edits. When we posted it online, the response was immediate. Smaller than Lux's reach, but fiercer. More real. Donations trickled in from fans. Then from other queens. Then from a production company we'd never heard of. One that promised creative control. Chloe read the email 3 times before looking up. This is it. Exactly what we wanted. I kissed her, tasting hope and cheap wine. We did it our way. #### the future. The apartment was still tiny. The radiator still clanked. But now there were camera bags next to the bed and scripts on the kitchen table. Chloe stretched across the mattress, her foot nudging mine. Where do you think we'll be in a year? I thought about the winding path that had brought us here. The bullies, the prom, the glitter and the grit of it all. Exactly where we're supposed to be, I said. She smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. The coffee had gone cold in my hands, the steam long since dissipated into the chilly morning air of our apartment. Outside the window, New York was waking up. The distant wail of sirens, the rumble of garbage trucks, the occasional shout from the street below. I stared at the laptop screen where the latest edit of our new independent episode was paused, my reflection faint in the blackness of the screen. Chloe shifted beside me on the futon, her knees drawn up to her chest, her hair a tangled mess from sleeping on it wet. She squinted at the screen. We should cut that last segment by 15 seconds. I reached for the trackpad, scrolling through the timeline. The part where Mom talks about her first time performing in drag? Yeah, it's powerful, but it drags right in the middle when she's reaching for her drink. I nodded, making the edit. The footage jumped slightly, tightening the moment. Chloe was right. It flowed better now. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the laptop fan. Mom was still asleep in her room. The door cracked just enough to hear her occasional snore. The clock on the microwave read 6:37 a.m. We'd been up all night working. Chloe stretched, her joints popping audibly. We should sleep. We should, I agreed, but neither of us moved. The email from the production company was still open on my phone, the one that had come in at 2 a.m. with the subject line. Asterisk, funding approved, next steps. Asterisk, it wasn't a huge budget, nothing like what Lux had offered, but it was enough. Enough to keep going. Enough to do it our way. Chloe's fingers tapped absently against her thigh, a nervous habit she'd had since high school. Do you think we made the right choice? I closed the laptop and turned to face her. Walking away from Lux? Yeah, I thought about it. The security we'd given up. The way Sebastian's face had looked when I told him we were leaving. Not angry, just mildly disappointed, like a parent watching a child make a mistake they'd have to learn from the hard way. Then I thought about the footage we'd shot last week. The raw, unpolished moments that never would have made it past Lux's editors. Mom helping a young drag queen tape her breasts before a show. Marcus crying backstage after his first performance. The quiet exhaustion in Chloe's eyes when she thought the camera wasn't on her. Yeah, I said. We did. Chloe exhaled, long and slow, like she'd been holding her breath. Good. The knock at the door came just past noon, loud enough to startle me awake. I barely managed to doze off, curled into Chloe's side on the futon, the laptop still balanced precariously on the coffee table. I groaned, untangling myself. Chloe didn't stir. The knocking came again, more insistent. I shuffled to the door, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and yanked it open. Marcus stood in the hallway, grinning like a madman, 2 coffees in hand. Rise and shine, superstar. I blinked. What the hell are you doing here? He pushed past me into the apartment. I took the first bus out of Ridgeview. You're not the only one who can make dramatic life choices. Chloe sat up, her hair sticking up on one side. Marcus. Surprise. He set the coffees down and spread his arms. I quit my job. I'm moving to New York. And I'm here to help with whatever this is. He gestured vaguely at the camera equipment piled in the corner. Chloe and I exchanged a look. You quit your job, I repeated. Yep. To do what exactly? He flopped onto the futon beside Chloe. Whatever you need. Assistant. Cameraman. Moral support. I make a mean coffee, as evidenced. He pointed to the cups. Chloe took one, sipping cautiously. Oh my God, this is actually good. I know, Marcus said smugly. I picked up the other cup, the warmth seeping into my fingers. You're serious about this? Marcus's grin faded into something more earnest. You guys are doing something real. I want in. The apartment felt suddenly smaller with him there, but not in a bad way, like it had expanded just enough to make room for one more. Chloe raised her coffee. Welcome aboard. The next week passed in a blur of logistics. Marcus crashed on our floor while he looked for his own place. The production company wired the first installment of funds. We shot test footage in Washington Square Park, interviewing strangers about their first encounters with drag culture. It was messy, unpredictable, nothing like the polished productions Lux would have demanded. And it was ours. Mom took us all out to dinner to celebrate. A cramped little Italian place in the village where the owner knew her by name and the wine flowed freely. "You kids," she said, raising her glass, "are gonna change the damn world." Marcus clinked his glass against hers. "Damn right." Chloe smiled, but I saw the way her fingers tightened around her wine glass, the faint crease between her eyebrows that meant she was worrying about something. Later, as we walked home, she fell into step beside me while Marcus and Mom argued about the best Cher songs ahead of us. The first independent episode went live on a Thursday. We'd edited it ourselves, hunched over the laptop for days, arguing over cuts and music choices until Marcus threatened to throw the computer out the window. We gathered around Mom's tiny TV to watch the premiere, even though we'd seen it 100 times already. The view count climbed slowly at first, then all at once. Comments poured in. Shares. Messages from people we'd never met, saying the episode had moved them, that it mattered. Chloe's phone buzzed with an email alert. She stared at it for a long moment before looking up. The production company wants to renew for another season. The apartment erupted. Marcus hooped. Mom poured celebratory shots. I pulled Chloe into a hug, her laughter warm against my neck. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent to our small victory. But here, in this cramped apartment with its peeling paint and temperamental radiator, something new was taking root. Something real. The rain tapped against the windows of our tiny apartment, a steady rhythm that had been going since dawn. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the spreadsheet open on my laptop, the numbers blurring together after hours of looking at them. Rent. Equipment costs. Marcus's stipend. The math wasn't working. Chloe came in from the fire escape, her hair damp from the rain, a cigarette dangling from her fingers. She took one look at my face and sighed. That bad? I turned the laptop toward her. We're in the red. She leaned over my shoulder, her breath warm against my ear as she scanned the screen. The scent of rain and tobacco clung to her. We knew this would happen. Knowing it and seeing it are different. She straightened, taking a drag from her cigarette before stubbing it out in the ashtray we kept by the window. We'll figure it out. The certainty in her voice almost made me believe it. Marcus arrived an hour later, shaking water from his jacket as he stepped inside. Remind me why we don't have an office yet? Because offices cost money, Chloe said, handing him a towel. He grinned, ruffling his hair dry. Details. I pushed the laptop toward him. We need to talk about the budget. His smile faded as he scanned the numbers. For the first time since he'd shown up on our doorstep, I saw doubt flicker across his face. It was gone in an instant, replaced by his usual optimism. Okay, so we cut back. Fewer shoots. Cheaper equipment. Chloe shook her head. We can't sacrifice quality. Not if we want to compete. Then what? Marcus asked. The silence stretched. The rain continued its relentless tap-tap-tap against the glass. I closed the laptop. We need a sponsor. Chloe's eyebrows shot up. You want to sell out? I want to keep doing this, I said. If that means compromising a little, so be it. She crossed her arms. What kind of sponsor? I hesitated. Lux reached out. The air in the room thickened. Marcus looked between us, suddenly very interested in his coffee. Chloe's voice was dangerously calm. When? Yesterday. And you didn't tell me. I rubbed my temples. I was going to. I wanted to think it through first. She turned away, her shoulders tense. I need air. The door slammed behind her. Marcus whistled low. That went well. I found Chloe on the roof, her arms braced against the ledge, staring out at the rain-soaked city. She didn't turn as I approached. I'm not going back to them, I said. She exhaled sharply. Aren't you? I stepped closer, the cold wind biting through my shirt. We're drowning, Chloe. I'm just trying to keep us afloat. She finally looked at me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I know. But at what cost? I had no answer. The argument hung over us for days, a constant tension that even Marcus couldn't diffuse. We worked in silence, editing footage, answering emails, avoiding the subject of Lux. Then, on Thursday morning, an email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: Partnership opportunity. Chloe read it over my shoulder, her breath catching. Is this for real? The sender was the founder of a queer-owned makeup company, one that had been gaining traction online. They wanted to sponsor our next season. No creative strings attached. I stared at the screen. I think so. Marcus hooped, clapping me on the back. See? Told you we'd figure it out. Chloe didn't celebrate. She just squeezed my shoulder, her fingers warm and familiar, before walking away. That night, as we lay in bed, the apartment quiet around us, she spoke into the darkness. I'm scared, she admitted. I turned to face her. Of what? That one day the choice won't be ours to make. That we'll wake up and realize we've become exactly what we walked away from. I reached for her hand, lacing our fingers together. We won't. She squeezed back, tight enough to hurt. Promise. The city hummed outside, indifferent to our fears. Promise, I said. The next morning, we signed the contract with the makeup company. The advance hit our account by noon. Marcus celebrated by ordering takeout. Mom stopped by with champagne. Chloe smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. As the others laughed and talked around me, I watched her, the way she held herself slightly apart, the way her fingers tapped restlessly against her thigh. We'd won. So why did it feel like we were losing something? The makeup company's check cleared on a Tuesday morning. I woke to Chloe sitting at the edge of the futon, her phone glowing in the dim light, her shoulders hunched forward like she was carrying something heavy. They want changes, she said without turning around. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes. Who? The sponsors. She tossed her phone onto the mattress beside me. The email was open, polite corporate language masking the demand beneath. More focus on their products, less niche drag culture, a reshoot of several segments to better highlight their brand. I read it twice before speaking. It's not that bad. Chloe stood abruptly, pacing the narrow space between the futon and the kitchenette. It's exactly what we said we wouldn't do. The apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in. Outside, the city was waking up, the distant sounds of traffic filtering through the glass. We need the money, I said quietly. She stopped pacing, her back to me. I know. There was something final in the way she said it, like a door closing. The reshoot was scheduled for Friday. The makeup company sent over boxes of products, foundations in shades that didn't match half our subjects, lipsticks with names like Corporate Darling and Boardroom Babe. Marcus lined them up on our makeshift production desk, whistling. This stuff's actually nice. Chloe didn't respond. She was too busy adjusting the camera settings, her jaw set in a hard line. Mom arrived mid-morning, taking one look at the tension in the room before clapping her hands. All right, children, let's make some art. It should have been easy. Just a few extra shots of the products being used, a couple of script tweaks. But every take fell hollow, the performances stiff where they should have been fluid, the conversations forced where they used to flow. During a break, Mom pulled me aside. You're losing her. I watched Chloe through the open bathroom door, scrubbing at a makeup stain on her shirt with more force than necessary. I know. Mom's grip on my arm tightened. Fix it. That night, Chloe stayed late at the editing bay we'd rented for the week. I brought her coffee around midnight, finding her slumped in front of the monitor. The footage paused on a close-up of a young drag king applying one of the sponsor's lipsticks. It's not terrible, she said, accepting the cup. I sat beside her, our knees touching. But it's not us. She exhaled, long and slow. No. The screen glowed between us, the paused image a stark reminder of what we'd sacrificed. We can back out, I said. Return the money. Chloe shook her head. And then what? Go back to barely scraping by. I had no answer. She reached for my hand, her fingers cold against mine. This is just how it is, I guess. The resignation in her voice hurt more than any argument. The episode aired 2 weeks later to solid numbers. The sponsor was thrilled. Our inbox filled with partnership requests from other brands, a queer-owned clothing line, an LGBTQ+ dating app, a vodka company that touted its inclusive marketing. Marcus celebrated by booking a table at a decent restaurant. Mom toasted to our success. Chloe smiled and nodded in all the right places, but her eyes were distant, like she'd already left. On the walk home, I grabbed her hand. "Talk to me." She stopped beneath a streetlight, the yellow glow casting shadows across her face. "Remember when we first started? Just us and your mom's camera." I nodded. "I miss that," she said softly. A cab sped past, its headlights briefly illuminating the ache in her expression. "Me too," I admitted. She squeezed my hand once before letting go. "We can't go back, can we?" The city stretched around us, endless and uncaring. "No," I said, "but maybe we can find a way forward." The next morning, I woke to an empty apartment and a note on the fridge. Asterisk, gone to clear my head. Don't wait up. Asterisk. No signature. Just the faint smell of her shampoo lingering in the air. I spent the day fielding emails from sponsors, negotiating rates, scheduling shoots, all the things that used to excite me but now just felt like work. Marcus showed up around dinner time with takeout and a six-pack. "Where's Chloe?" I shrugged. "Out." He studied me for a long moment before popping open a beer. "You two gonna be okay?" I took the beer he offered, the cold bite of it sharp on my tongue. "I don't know." Chloe came home just past midnight, her clothes smelling of rain and something floral. Maybe a bar, maybe a friend's place. She didn't say where she'd been. I sat up as she undressed in the dark. "We need to talk." She stilled, her silhouette framed by the streetlight outside our window. "Okay." The words came out in a rush. "I don't want to lose what we built. Not for sponsors, not for money, not for anything." She crawled into bed beside me, her skin cool from the night air. "Then what do we do?" I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of rain and her. "We remember why we started." She buried her face in my shoulder. "And if that's not enough anymore?" The question hung between us, heavy with things we hadn't said. I held her tighter. "Then we find a new reason." The next episode, we filmed without a script. Just raw, unfiltered conversations with drag performers about the cost of selling out, about the line between art and commerce, about what gets lost when you chase success. The sponsor wasn't happy. We didn't care. The sponsor's email arrived at 3:17 a.m. I know because I was awake when it came in, staring at the ceiling while Chloe slept fitfully beside me. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the screen lighting up the dark room. Subject: urgent, contract violation. The words blurred as I read them. Disappointed, breach of agreement, reconsider our partnership. I set the phone down carefully, but the movement must have woken Chloe. She rolled over, squinting at me in the dim light. "What's wrong?" I handed her the phone. She read it silently, her expression hardening with each line. When she finished, she tossed it onto the bed between us. "Fuck them. It's not just them," I said quietly. "If they pull out, others will too." The truth of it settled over us like a weight. Without sponsors, we couldn't pay Marcus, couldn't afford equipment rentals, couldn't keep the lights on. Chloe sat up, pulling her knees to her chest. "So that's it? We either sell out or starve." Outside, a siren wailed past our building. I watched the red and blue lights flicker across the wall, here and gone in an instant. "I don't know," I admitted. #### the reckoning. Morning brought no clarity. Just more emails, angry ones from the sponsor, worried ones from our production company, confused ones from fans who'd heard rumors of trouble. Marcus showed up at noon, uncharacteristically subdued. "So, we screwed." Chloe shoved a coffee into his hands. "Not yet." We spent the afternoon drafting responses, trying to salvage what we could. Every compromise we proposed was met with resistance. More product placement, more brand integration, less negative tone about commercialization. By sunset, Chloe was pacing the apartment like a caged animal. "We can't do this." Marcus looked up from his laptop. "Do what?" "Any of it." She stopped, her hands clenched at her sides. "This isn't why we started. It's not what we promised our audience. It's not." Her voice broke. "It's not who we are." The silence that followed was heavy with everything we'd been avoiding. ###the choice. I found Mom at her usual bar, halfway through a martini and deep in conversation with a drag queen I didn't recognize. She took one look at my face and slid her drink toward me. That bad? I drained half the glass before answering. We're losing everything. She sighed, signaling the bartender for another round. Or gaining it all back. I frowned. What's that supposed to mean? She turned on her stool to face me fully. Why did you start this, baby? Really? The answer came without thinking. To tell real stories. To show what drag's really about. And are you doing that? I thought of our last episode, the raw honesty of it, the way the performers had opened up when they realized we weren't just there to sell lipstick. Not anymore, I admitted. Mom patted my cheek. There's your answer. Hashtag the walkaway. The email we sent was short. No apologies. No negotiations. Just a simple statement. We're terminating our partnership. The sponsor's response came within minutes. Legal action pending. Chloe laughed when she read it. A sharp, humorless sound. Let them try. Marcus wasn't as confident. Guys, this could ruin us. Only if we let it, Chloe said. I looked between them. Marcus, who'd given up everything to join us. Chloe, who'd been my partner in this from the start. Let's make something worth ruining ourselves for, I said. Hashtag the pivot. We filmed the next episode with Mom's old camera, the one we'd used when we first started. No crew. No fancy lighting. Just us and the performers, talking about what drag meant when no one was watching. We posted it for free on every platform we could find. No ads. No sponsors. Just art. The response was immediate. Messages poured in from other artists, from fans, even from some of the smaller brands we'd turned down. This is why we loved your show, they wrote. This is what matters. It wasn't enough to pay the bills, but it was a start. The apartment was quiet that night. Marcus had gone home to his own place for the first time in weeks. Mom was performing across town. Chloe and I sat on the fire escape, passing a bottle of cheap wine between us, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. We're going to be broke, she said, taking a swig. I nodded. Probably. She passed the bottle back. Worth it. I thought about the last email we'd gotten, from a young drag queen in Ohio who said our show had given her the courage to come out. Yeah, I said. Worth it. Chloe leaned her head against my shoulder. Good. The electricity got cut off on a Tuesday. I came home from buying groceries to find Chloe sitting cross-legged on the floor in the dark, our last working laptop balanced on her knees, its screen casting blue shadows across her face. They didn't even warn us this time, she said without looking up. I set the bags down carefully, listening to the ice cream melting inside. How bad is it? She turned the laptop toward me. Our bank account glared red. Negative $237.18. Marcus picked that moment to burst through the door, his arms full of camera equipment. Got the stabilizer from that indie crew down the... He froze, taking in the scene. Oh. Chloe snapped the laptop shut. We need a new plan. Hashtag the desperation hustle. Mom's dressing room became our temporary office. We charged devices in her vanity outlets, stole her Wi-Fi, and ate the backstage snacks meant for performers. At least buy your own mascara, she grumbled, swatting my hand away from her makeup bag for the third time that week. Marcus scrolled through crowdfunding sites on his phone. We could do Patreon. Exclusive content for subscribers. Chloe shook her head. We'd just be trading sponsors for patrons. Still someone else pulling the strings. I watched a drag queen in the corner carefully glue rhinestones to her eyebrows. Her movements precise, practiced. What if we go straight to the audience? They all looked at me. No middlemen, I said. We film what we want, post it ourselves. Let people pay what they think it's worth. Chloe's eyes lit up. Like busking, but with drag. Marcus groaned. We're gonna die broke. Hashtag the experiment. We shot the first episode in an alley behind the club. No permits. No fancy equipment. Just Mom's camera and a borrowed mic. The premise was simple. One drag queen, 1 hour, one raw conversation about their art. No edits. No cuts. We uploaded it at 3 a.m. from a coffee shop with spotty Wi-Fi, setting it as pay what you want on a video platform none of us had heard of before that week. Then we waited. #### the response. The first donation came in at 6:17 a.m. $5 from someone in Texas with the username DragFan92. By noon, we'd made $300. By sunset, the video had been shared by 3 major drag queens we'd never met. The donations ticked over $1,000. Chloe stared at the numbers like they might disappear. This can't be real. I refreshed the page. The total jumped another $50. It's real. Marcus hooped loud enough to get us kicked out of the coffee shop. #### the catch. The money was unpredictable. Some days brought floods of donations. Others, nothing. We learned to budget in weeks, not months, taking odd jobs between shoots to cover rent. But the freedom was intoxicating. No more sponsor notes. No more brand integrations. Just us and the stories we wanted to tell. The trade-off became clear when Chloe opened our electric bill to find a final notice paper-clipped to a shut-off warning. "We can't keep doing this," she said quietly. I took the bill from her hands. "We'll figure it out." ### the offer. It came via DM from an account called a Queer Art Collective. *, we're a worker-owned media coupe. Love what you're doing. Want to collaborate. *, Chloe was skeptical. Another group wanting to help? No thanks. But Marcus dug deeper. Wait, these are the folks who did that underground drag documentary last year. The one that got banned in 3 states. I looked at their feed. Raw, unfiltered queer art. No sponsors. No corporate ties. Just passion. Let's meet them, I said. ### the collective. Their office was a converted warehouse in Bushwick, its walls covered in protest posters and drag memorabilia. A dozen people worked at mismatched desks, arguing good-naturedly over edits and sound mixing. The founder, a non-binary filmmaker named Z, greeted us with black coffee and blunt honesty. "We want to distribute your content. No ownership. No creative control. Just a platform and a split of the profits." Chloe crossed her arms. "Why?" Z smiled. "Because the world needs real queer stories. And you tell them better than anyone." ### the decision. We debated for days. The collective wanted 30% of our earnings. A steep cut when we were barely scraping by. But they offered equipment, legal protection, and access to an audience of thousands. "It's not perfect," Marcus said. "But it's better than selling out." Chloe stared at the contract late into the night, her brow furrowed. "What if we lose ourselves anyway?" I took her hand. "Then we'll find each other again." ### the leap. We signed on a rainy Thursday. Z celebrated by cracking open a bottle of cheap champagne. Welcome to the resistance. That night, we filmed our first episode under the collective's banner. A no-holds-barred look at police brutality against drag performers. It went viral within hours. The donations poured in. So did the hate mail. Chloe taped one particularly vile letter to our wall. Might as well document the backlash. I kissed her, tasting the sharp tang of her nervous energy. "We're gonna be okay." She smiled against my lips. "I know. ### the new normal. Electricity stayed on. Rent got paid. Marcus even bought himself a new camera. But the best part? The messages. *, you gave me courage to come out. *, I started drag because of your show. *, thank you for telling our stories. Chloe read each one aloud before bed, her voice soft in the dark. This wasn't fame, wasn't fortune, but it was ours. The first death threat arrived in a plain white envelope, slipped under our apartment door sometime while we slept. I nearly stepped on it when I got up to make coffee, the paper crinkling under my bare foot. Chloe was still asleep, curled into the warmth I'd left behind on the futon. I picked up the envelope carefully, as if it might burn me. No stamp, no return address. Just my name scrawled in block letters across the front. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. Asterisk, stop polluting our children, or we'll stop you. Asterisk. I stood there for a long moment, the paper trembling in my hands, before shoving it into the junk drawer and slamming it shut. The sound woke Chloe. "What's wrong?" she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. I forced a smile. "Nothing. Go back to sleep." The lie sat heavy in my throat. I didn't tell anyone about the threat. Not Chloe, not Marcus, not even Mom when she stopped by that afternoon to borrow my good eyelash glue. But the words echoed in my head all day, a dark undercurrent beneath the usual chaos of filming and editing. It wasn't until that night, when Chloe and I were washing dishes side by side, that she paused, her hands dripping soapy water, and fixed me with that look, the one that meant she knew I was hiding something. "Okay," she said. "What is it?" I dried my hands slowly, buying time. "What's what?" "Don't." She flicked water at me. "You've been off all day. Did something happen?" The envelope sat like a lead weight in the junk drawer. I could lie again. I almost did. Then the doorbell rang. #### the visitor. Marcus stood on the landing, his usually cheerful face grim. "We've got a problem." He handed me his phone. On the screen was a news article from some conservative website, the headline screaming, Asterisk, drag queen filmmakers targeting children, documents reveal. Asterisk. My stomach dropped. What the hell is this? They're saying our work is grooming material. Marcus scrolled to show more articles, each worse than the last. It's going viral in all the wrong circles. Chloe grabbed the phone, her face hardening as she read. "This is bullshit. We've never even worked with kids." "Doesn't matter," Marcus said. "They're twisting everything. That episode we did about Drag Story Hour? They're calling it proof of a secret agenda." I thought of the note in the drawer. Suddenly it felt naive to think it had been an isolated threat. #### the backlash. The harassment started small. A few nasty comments on our videos. Some one-star reviews from accounts that had clearly never watched our content. Then the emails began. Hundreds of them, flooding our inbox overnight. Vile, graphic, terrifying. Chloe deleted them in batches, her jaw set. "Don't read them. That's what they want." But I couldn't help it. Each one felt like a punch to the gut. Asterisk, freaks like you belong in jail. Asterisk, asterisk, we know where you live. Asterisk, asterisk, wait till we find you. Asterisk. Z called an emergency meeting at the collective's warehouse. When we arrived, half a dozen other queer creators were already there, their faces drawn with the same exhaustion we felt. "Welcome to the club," said a trans filmmaker named Eli, handing us each a cup of terrible coffee. "Right-wingers have been coming for me since my first documentary." Z tapped a map pinned to the wall, marked with red dots. "These are safe spaces, studios, editing bays, even a few crash pads if you need to lay low." Chloe crossed her arms. "We're not running. I'm not asking you to," Z said. "Just be smart. Vary your routines. Check your car for trackers. And for fuck's sake, stop opening suspicious mail." I thought of the note in my drawer and said nothing. #### the response. We debated for days about whether to address the backlash publicly. Marcus wanted to ignore it. Chloe wanted to fight. I just wanted to sleep without dreaming of faceless men kicking down our door. In the end, the decision was made for us. A local news station, one of the few that wasn't vilifying us, reached out for an interview. "Give your side of the story," the producer urged. Z was against it. "They'll twist your words." But Chloe was adamant. If we don't speak up, they win by default. We agreed to one interview. Just one. #### the interview. The studio lights were hotter than I expected. I wiped my palms on my jeans as the makeup artist dusted powder across my forehead. The interviewer, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane, gave us a reassuring smile. "Just be yourselves. We'll keep it fair." But the moment the cameras rolled, her tone shifted. "Your critics say you're pushing adult content on children. How do you respond?" Chloe didn't flinch. "We've never created content for children. That's a lie being spread to scare people. And the Drag Story Hour episode was about performers reading books to kids in libraries. I cut in. No different than a clown or a magician. Diane arched an eyebrow. Some would say it's very different. The interview spiraled from there. Every question was a trap, every answer twisted before we could finish speaking. By the time it was over, my shirt was soaked with sweat. Z met us backstage, their face grim. They set you up. We didn't need to wait for the edited segment to air to know how bad it would be. #### the fallout. The backlash intensified overnight. Our social media was flooded with hate. The collective's website crashed under a coordinated attack. Even some of our longtime followers began distancing themselves, afraid of being targeted by association. The worst part? The fear. It crept into everything. The way Chloe double-checked the locks before bed, the way Marcus started carrying pepper spray, the way I hesitated before answering the door. We kept working, kept filming, but the joy had gone out of it, replaced by a grim determination that left us all exhausted. #### the turning point. It was Mom who snapped us out of it. She showed up at our apartment unannounced one evening, her arms full of takeout and a bottle of whiskey. "Enough moping," she declared, kicking the door shut behind her. We ate in silence at first, the weight of everything too heavy to put into words. Then Mom poured 3 shots and pushed them toward us. "Drink," she ordered. We obeyed. She poured another round. "Now listen. You kids are doing something important. And important things? They scare people." Chloe swirled her whiskey. "They're trying to destroy us." Mom laughed. "Honey, they've been trying to destroy people like us for centuries. And yet here we are." She knocked back her shot. "Fuck 'em." It wasn't that simple. We all knew it. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something unclench in my chest. #### the way forward. We didn't stop the work. If anything, we doubled down, filming more episodes, partnering with activist groups, even organizing a fundraiser for queer artists facing similar harassment. The threats didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. But now we had a system, Z's safe spaces, a lawyer on retainer through the collective, a security protocol for every shoot. And we had each other. One particularly bad night, when the emails were especially vile and the fear threatened to swallow me whole, Chloe dragged our mattress to the floor and built a blanket fort like we were kids again. "We're okay," she whispered in the dark, her fingers laced through mine. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent to our small lives. But here, in this fragile cocoon of blankets, we were untouchable. #### the unexpected ally. The email came from an address we didn't recognize. *, I used to believe the lies about you. Then I actually watched your work. I'm sorry. How can I help? *. It was signed by a pastor from Ohio. At first, we assumed it was a trap. But when we checked, the man's congregation was real. A small, progressive church that had recently started hosting drag story hours despite protests. Chloe stared at the screen. Do we trust this? I thought of the note in the drawer, the interviews, the endless flood of hate. Then I thought of Mom's words. Here we are. We give him a chance, I said. The pastor's video testimonial went viral for all the right reasons. A straight, middle-aged man in a clerical collar speaking passionately about the importance of queer stories. Other unlikely allies followed. A retired teacher in Florida. A PTA mom from Texas. Even a conservative talk show host's daughter, who outed herself as a fan in a tearful TikTok. The hate didn't disappear. But now there was balance. Z called it the pendulum effect. Push hard enough in one direction, they said, and eventually it swings back. #### the aftermath. We never found out who sent the first threat. The police barely glanced at it when we finally worked up the courage to report it. But it didn't matter. Because here we were. Still creating. Still fighting. Still in love. And most importantly, still here. The church basement smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. Folding chairs were arranged in a loose circle, about 24 people already seated. Some in drag, some in plain clothes, a few elderly church ladies clutching their purses like they weren't quite sure what they'd gotten themselves into. Pastor Matthews greeted us at the door, His handshake firm, his smile genuine. "We're so glad you could come." Chloe returned the smile, but I felt the tension in her shoulders as we stepped inside. This was our first official community dialogue, an event the pastor had organized after his video went viral, bringing together drag performers and curious locals in his Ohio town. A woman with tightly permed hair eyed Chloe's ripped jeans and facial piercings. "Are you the entertainers?" Chloe's smile didn't waver. "We're filmmakers. But yes, we work with drag queens." The woman nodded stiffly and hurried away. Pastor Matthews leaned in. "Give them time." #### the dialogue. The event started awkwardly. The locals asked stiff, rehearsed questions. The drag performers gave equally stiff answers. It felt like a bad first date where no one wanted to be there. Then one of the church ladies, Mabel, she insisted we call her, raised her hand. "I don't understand all this," she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "But my grandson came out last year. I just want to love him well." Something in the room shifted. A drag queen named Pepper stood, her sequin dress catching the fluorescent lights. "Let me tell you about the first time my grandma saw me perform." By the end of the night, Mabel was hugging Pepper and promising to come to her next show. #### the aftermath. We filmed the entire thing, the awkward start, the gradual thawing, the unexpected connections. When we posted the raw footage online, the response was immediate. Requests poured in from other towns, other churches, even a few community centers in deep red states. Everyone wanted their own dialogue event. Marcus stared at the inbox in disbelief. "We've created a monster." Chloe scrolled through the messages, her eyes bright. "We've created change." #### the cost. The travel wore on us. 3 cities a week, endless motel rooms, meals grabbed at gas stations. Chloe developed a permanent cough from sleeping in damp rooms. Marcus's boyfriend started leaving passive-aggressive voicemails. "I missed Mom. Missed our apartment. Missed having a routine that didn't involve constantly scanning crowds for hostile faces." One particularly grueling night in a Tennessee truck stop, Chloe broke down over stale pancakes. "I can't keep doing this." I reached across the sticky table and took her hand. "Then we stop." She shook her head, wiping her eyes with her free hand. "We can't. Not when it's working." The waitress refilled our coffee without comment, her eyes lingering on Chloe's smudged eyeliner. #### the solution. Z had the idea first. Train locals to run these dialogues themselves. You can't be everywhere at once. We launched the program in January, a weekend workshop for community leaders, drag performers, anyone willing to bridge the divide. The first cohort had 12 people. By spring, we had to start a waiting list. Pastor Matthews hosted the inaugural session at his church. Watching him guide a nervous small-town librarian through a mock dialogue, I realized we created something that would outlast us. Chloe must have felt it too. She leaned against me in the back row, her voice barely above a whisper. "Look what we did." #### the homecoming. We took a month off that summer, returning to New York exhausted but changed. The city felt both familiar and strange. Louder than we remembered, smellier, more vibrant. Mom threw us a welcome home party at her club. Halfway through the night, she pulled me aside, her grip surprisingly strong. "I'm proud of you." I hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her hairspray. "We learned from the best." #### the new normal. Life settled into a rhythm. We traveled less, focused more on training and content creation. Marcus finally repaired things with his boyfriend. Chloe's cough disappeared. The hate never fully went away. Every few weeks, another nasty email would slip through. Sometimes protesters showed up at our events. But now there were also the letters. From grandparents who'd reconciled with their queer grandchildren. From small-town drag queens who finally felt seen. From teenagers who said our work gave them hope. We kept them all in a shoebox under the bed. On bad days, we'd read them aloud to each other. #### the future. 5 years later, we returned to Ridgeview for their first official Pride celebration. The park where I'd once performed for skeptical locals was now packed with rainbow flags and cheering crowds. Emily was there, divorced from Mark and running a PFLAG chapter. She hugged me without hesitation. "Look what you started." Chloe and I stood on the makeshift stage that night, looking out at the sea of faces, young and old, queer and ally, everyone together in this small town that had once felt so suffocating. "Welcome home," I whispered to Chloe. She squeezed my hand. "We did good. And we had. And when we slept, we dreamed in color again." But the shoebox under our bed overflowed with letters. The mayor's office stopped calling. Some sponsors drifted away. Our bank account fluctuated wildly. We didn't stop the activism work entirely, but we carved out space for art too. No agenda, no messaging, just truth. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the balance. Chloe leaned into me, her body warm against mine. We remembered. Z found us afterward. Their usual cynicism softened. This is why we do it. As the final shot faded, a slow pan across a drag queen's dressing table, littered with makeup and memories, the room erupted. Not in applause, but in conversation. Strangers turning to each other, sharing stories, connecting. Mom's Club was packed the night we screened the new project. No corporate sponsors. No fancy introductions. Just a white sheet hung on the back wall and a projector borrowed from the collective. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the homecoming. Chloe grinned. Exactly. Marcus groaned when he saw the edit. There's no narrative arc. The footage was raw, unpolished, beautiful. Instead, we went back to basics. Just us and a camera, filming whatever moved us. A day in the life of a non-binary hairstylist. The final performance of a retiring drag queen. The quiet moments between protests and pride parades. We canceled all non-essential commitments. No interviews. No panels. No more than 2 meetings a week. She stared at the skyline. To remember who we are. I sat beside her, our shoulders touching. What do you need? The question hung between us. Somewhere along the way, between the award ceremonies and the fundraising goals and the endless meetings, the fire had dimmed. We were still telling important stories. But the joy was gone. When she looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed. When did this become a job? I found her on the fire escape, her head between her knees. "Hey, talk to me." "Cut," she said, setting down the camera. "I need air." It happened 3 days after the ceremony. We were filming an interview with a drag king collective in Brooklyn when Chloe suddenly stopped the shoot. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the breaking point. When I relayed the conversation to Chloe later, she shuddered. That's how they get you. Little by little, until you forget why you started. She waved a dismissive hand. Same skill set these days. Tell compelling stories. Get people to believe in you. I choked on my sparkling water. We're filmmakers, not politicians. You too should consider running for office, she said, her smile sharp as her manicure. The reception was all champagne and canapes in a room that probably cost more to rent for one night than our entire annual budget. A city councilwoman cornered me near the ice sculpture. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the after party. Chloe caught my eye across the stage. Some things never changed. Then they called Miriam Gonzalez, a trans activist who'd been fighting for homeless youth for a decade without recognition. The applause was noticeably quieter. The mayor gave a polished speech about unity. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. When they called our names, the applause was thunderous. City Hall's marble floors echoed with every step. Chloe had swapped her usual ripped jeans for slacks. I wore a suit borrowed from Marcus. We looked like different people. Those terms included demanding they honor 3 grassroots activists alongside us. People the city had ignored for years. The mayor's office reluctantly agreed. The argument raged for hours. In the end, Chloe cast the deciding vote. We'll go, but on our terms. Eli disagreed. Or it's proof the system's changing. Why reject progress? Z was vehemently against it when we brought it to the collective meeting. They're co-opting you. One award ceremony and suddenly you're part of the system you've been fighting. The silence that followed was heavier than it should have been. I set the invitation on the table carefully, like it might explode. Maybe we're not troublemakers anymore. Chloe didn't smile. Since when does the establishment celebrate troublemakers? Marcus whistled from the kitchenette where he was making coffee. Look at you two. Going legit. I took the invitation, my fingers leaving smudges on the thick paper. In recognition of your contributions to diversity and inclusion. The ceremony was scheduled for next month at City Hall. They want to give us a civic award. The invitation arrived on heavy cardstock, embossed with the seal of the mayor's office. Chloe turned it over in her hands twice before speaking. The first gray hairs appeared the same week our documentary won the festival award. Chloe noticed them first, her fingers pausing mid-stroke through my damp hair after a shower. You've got silver, she said, twisting a lock between her fingers. I turned to see in the mirror, just a few strands at my temples, barely noticeable unless you were looking. Ha! Chloe pressed her cheek against my bare shoulder, our reflections blurring together in the steam-fogged glass. Her own hair still hung dark as ever, though fine lines had begun etching themselves at the corners of her eyes. We're getting old. The observation should have been mundane, but it settled between us with unexpected weight, the passage of time suddenly tangible in a way it hadn't been before. The award changed things. Suddenly our inbox was full of requests from film schools, from streaming platforms, from production companies that had ignored us for years. A distributor offered real money for the documentary's rights. Marcus, now sporting his own streaks of gray, nearly dropped his coffee when we told him the number. That's life-changing money. Chloe stared at the contract on her laptop screen. It's sellout money. The silence stretched. The radiator hissed. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor's television blared a laugh track. I closed the laptop. Let's sleep on it. We didn't sleep. Instead, we fought. Quietly at first, then louder as the night wore on. They'll own the footage, Chloe insisted, pacing the length of our apartment. They'll edit it. They'll package it. They'll turn our work into content. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands dangling between my knees. Or they'll get it seen by people who need it. She stopped pacing. Since when do you trust corporations? Since never. I looked up at her. But I'm tired, Chloe. Tired of worrying about rent. Tired of saying no to opportunities because we're afraid of compromise. The truth of it hung between us. We weren't kids anymore. The collective was thriving, but so many of our peers had burned out, moved on, gotten real jobs. Even Z had taken a teaching position last year. Chloe sat beside me, the mattress dipping under her weight. What if we lose ourselves? I took her hand, feeling the calluses from years of holding cameras, the faint tremor that had started appearing in both our hands after long shoots. What if we've earned this? We signed the deal, but on our terms. Final cut remained ours. The distributor got no say in future projects. And a portion of the profits went directly to the collective's emergency fund for queer artists. Marcus celebrated by buying expensive whiskey. Chloe celebrated by throwing up in the bathroom halfway through the bottle. I'm fine, she insisted afterward, her forehead pressed against the cool porcelain of the sink. Just adjusting. I held her hair back, remembering all the time she'd done the same for me after long nights at the club. Some rhythms never changed, even as everything else did. The money didn't transform us overnight. We still lived in the same apartment, still fought with the temperamental radiator, still stole Wi-Fi from the cafe downstairs. But slowly, quietly, our lives began to shift. Chloe bought a real camera. Not borrowed, not secondhand, hers. I finally replaced the laptop that had been held together with duct tape since grad school. We took Mom to dinner at a place with tablecloths and didn't look at the prices. And when the documentary aired on a major streaming platform, we didn't watch the view counts or read the reviews. Instead, we went to Coney Island on a Tuesday afternoon, rode the Cyclone until we were dizzy, and ate hot dogs on the pier like regular people. Harvard wanted us to teach. Just a guest lecture series at first, but with the possibility of a permanent position. Chloe stared at the email like it might bite her. Since when are we academia material? I thought of all the times we'd barely scraped by, all the knowledge we'd earned through sheer stubbornness and scars. Maybe since always. We debated for weeks. In the end, it was Mom who decided it. Take the damn job, she said, smacking my arm with a rolled-up magazine. You think I raised you to turn down healthcare? Cambridge was quieter than New York. Our apartment had an actual bedroom and a kitchen that fit more than one person at a time. The students looked impossibly young. The first lecture nearly gave me a panic attack. Standing at the podium in a borrowed blazer, facing rows of bright-eyed undergrads who expected me to have answers, it felt like a joke. Then Chloe, sitting in the back row, gave me a thumbs up. And I remembered, we'd faced worse. We didn't stop making films. But now we had help. Bright young collaborators who saw the world differently than we did, who challenged our assumptions, who reminded us why the work mattered. The collective continued without us, stronger than ever. Marcus took over leadership, with Z consulting when they weren't teaching. Our shoebox of letters found a new home in the campus LGBTQ+ Center, where students added their own stories to the collection. And sometimes, on quiet weekends when the grading was done and the city felt too far away, Chloe and I would drive back to New York, sneak into Mom's Club through the back door, and remember what it felt like to be young and hungry and certain we could change the world. Ridgeview High asked us to speak at their first Pride Assembly 10 years after we'd left. The halls smelled the same, industrial cleaner and teenage angst, but the walls were covered in rainbow flags now. Chloe squeezed my hand as we passed the cafeteria where I'd once had soda thrown at me. Table 7 was gone, replaced by a collaboration station with wheeled chairs. The auditorium was packed when we took the stage. Students leaned forward in their seats, their phones recording, their faces open in a way we'd never been at that age. A girl in the front row raised her hand. "How did you know you were making a difference?" Chloe smiled. "We didn't. We just kept going. And we had." The retirement party was held at Mom's Club, though it hadn't been hers in years. She'd passed the torch to a fierce new generation of drag queens a decade ago, but the place still smelled like her. Hairspray, glitter, and that cheap vanilla perfume she'd worn since the 90s. Chloe and I stood near the stage, our fingers intertwined, watching the crowd. Former students mingled with drag legends. Activists we'd trained shared drinks with filmmakers we'd inspired. Marcus, now fully gray but still grinning like a kid, held court at the bar, telling exaggerated stories about our early days to anyone who would listen. A young drag queen, maybe 20, if that, approached us hesitantly. "Excuse me." Her voice trembled slightly beneath the bass of the music. "I just wanted to say thank you." Chloe smiled. "What for?" The queen gestured vaguely, her sequin sleeves catching the light. "For all of it. The films. The dialogues. She swallowed hard. "I came out because of your work." I squeezed Chloe's hand, feeling the familiar ridges of her wedding band beneath my fingers. 30 years together, and moments like this still stole my breath. "What's your name?" Chloe asked gently. "Violet." The queen ducked her head, suddenly shy. "Violet LaRue." Mom would have cackled. I nearly did. #### the toast. Marcus climbed onto the stage later, tapping a spoon against his champagne glass until the room quieted. "To Jaden and Chloe," he said, his voice rougher than it used to be but no less full of joy, "who taught us that stories matter, that change is possible, and that sometimes the best way to fight is with a camera and a whole lot of glitter." The room erupted in cheers. Glasses clinked. Someone, probably one of our former students, started an impromptu Vogue battle near the DJ booth. Chloe leaned into me, her head resting against my shoulder. "Think we did okay?" I kissed her temple, breathing in the familiar scent of her ink and coffee and the lavender shampoo she'd used for as long as I'd known her. "Yeah, we did okay." #### The Last Dance. We left as the party was winding down, slipping out the back door into the crisp autumn night. The city pulsed around us, alive with new stories, new struggles, new dreams. Chloe paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the club's marquee where our names still flickered in fading lights. Should we be sad? I thought about it, about the decades of fight and love and art, about the kids we'd taught, the lives we'd touched, the small, stubborn mark we'd left on the world. "No," I said. "We gave it everything." She smiled, her face lined and lovely in the streetlight glow. "Then let's go home." Hand in hand, we walked away, not into the sunset, but into whatever came next. Epilogue. Years later, long after we'd traded the city for a quiet house upstate, a package arrived. Inside was a DVD and a note from Marcus. Asterisk, found this cleaning out the old office. Thought you should have it. Asterisk. We played it that night, curled together on the couch with blankets and bad wine. The footage was grainy, the colors faded. A young drag queen in a bedazzled shirt, a pastel-clad girl throwing a drink, a gymnasium transformed into something magical. Chloe laughed when teenage me appeared on screen, all awkward limbs and too much eyeliner. Look at you. So dramatic. I kissed her, slow and sweet, as the video played on. Our story, our beginning, flickering in the dark like the stubborn, beautiful flame it had always been. And somewhere beyond our quiet living room, beyond the trees and the stars and the years, the dance went on.